Go! African cultural response to slavery and oppression in the Americas and the Caribbean began on the shores of West Africa when captured Africans tried to take African soil into their mouths and sometimes in their hands onto the slave ship. Slavery was a war against African culture, especially against the structure of the African family. Those are the words of the Honorable John Henrik Clarke and Asa Hilliard's powerful piece, African Power. Our medicine and our healing is in our culture, African culture. And to it we must return if we want African black life. Indeed, we pour libation to cleanse us and connect us to our culture, to preserve and serve Ma'at. For we Africans are one lest we forget. Libation is a custom where liquid, usually water, is poured as it represents the essence of life onto a living plant at a shrine on the ground. Indeed, in many ways, as the names of historical and familial ancestors and forces are called The purpose is to connect the continual chain of our existence, the unborn of the spirit world, the youth, the adults, the elders, the ancestors, the loa, the forces, the cosmic forces, such that the entire community, the village, the circle of life is present. And therefore their wisdom, their strength, and their power is summoned as we move north, south, eastward, to populate the globe, and even westward as a result of the great Ma'afa libation traveled with us. African culture traveled. Our spiritual and belief systems traveled. Our drum and dance and songs and steps, they traveled with us. And yes, our Orisha, our Abason, our Lucy, Netzer, Loa, the ancestral and spiritual wisdom traveled and are here with us and for us now when we choose to remember again that our medicine and our healing is in our culture. And that is why libation is essential, for we lose when we cease to remember, when we throw away our ancestors with the bath water. Our babies, indeed, our future suffers. There is and can be no Sankofa without honoring our past as the basis for the future we seek. So honor our ancestors, honor our history, honor our way, lest we die. For in the words of Virago Job, just as our ears were deaf to their cries, to their wild appeals, they have left on the earth their cries for us blind, deaf, and unworthy children who see nothing of what they have made in the air, on the water, where they have traced their signs. And since we did not understand our dead, since we have never listened to their cries, if and when we weep gently, gently, if and when we cry roughly of our torments, what heart will listen to our clamoring, what ear to our sobbing hearts? So we pour and we speak libation as an act of remembrance, respect, recognition, reverence, renewal, return, reawakening, and restoration. Indeed, it's acts of retribution and revolution, for we live in a society and we live at a time when forgetting is the wish, and denying the relevance, the power, the mattering of African and black humanity is the norm. Sadly, even for far too many of us. So we pour and we speak libation as our own personal and collective quest for our own self-reparation, because repairing the African spirit starts with the pouring, the speaking, the living of libation. That is its purpose. We are instructed by our ancient ancestors in the book of Ani to pour libation for our fathers and mothers who rest in the valley of the dead. We must not forget to do this even when we have been torn away from home, for as we do for our parents or not, our children will do also for us or not. We pour and we speak libation for the indomitable fighting spirit we seek to resurrect, that we may continue our pursuit of black life, that is liberation, independence, freedom, empowerment. We dare call it justice for our ancestors and our children's future. And we pour and we speak libation in honor of those ancestors who left us a legacy worthy of honor. We pour and we speak for those who have contributed to our lives in ways we know and appreciate, and in the countless ways we have yet to understand, and in many ways we may never even know. We pour and we speak for the mother father of civilization, the nation builders, the concept creators, the freedom fighters, the warriors, the educators, those who escaped and those who stayed, those who fought and those who hid, those that roared and those that cried, those who held it down so that we may be lifted up, those who held us together so we could stand on our own. We pour and we speak for those whose struggles lay the foundation for the world's greatest diaspora, which will be great once again when we remember to love ourselves. We pour and we speak for those who have poured into us, filling us with the instincts, the insight, the intuition, the intelligence, the instruction that guide us forward, and that we will pass on to the beautiful ones not yet born. And we pour, we speak, and we live for the beautiful children not yet born, hoping that our living, our contribution to their future will one day be worthy of remembrance, respect, recognition, and reverence. And since we have your ear and we have your presence, we ask for African power, power to heal, overcome, become whole and exemplary and sovereign once again. Ashe, Aluta Continua, Uhuru Sasa, Black Power, Ubuntu, I am we, and we are one. So let the healing begin. Let our healing continue. Greetings, good afternoon, and welcome to Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations with Brother Shamari. I am Brother Shamari. Groundings comes at you every Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. right here. WURD Radio, 96.1 FM, 900 AM on your radio dial. You can also live stream with us on our website, www.wurdradio.com. Go up in that right-hand corner and click that play button, and you can listen live. You can also check us out visually if you want to by going to our Facebook and YouTube pages. Facebook is WURD Radio. So just go at WURD Radio. You'll see us pop right up there. You'll be able to vibe with us. And also YouTube, onWURD. Have an action-packed show for you today. Hopefully, as usual. Second Friday of the month. Second Friday is OGYG Freedom Forum. So we'll be joined by my good young brothers, Obasan Kofa and Casil Huggins, coming up right after this commercial break. Their focus today is on what programs and strategies to gain liberation have worked, or what elements of those programs have worked, and what principles do we need to be practicing today. That's their question for the OGs. So OGs, we always talk about young people not wanting to listen or not willing to listen. These are young brothers, young people who are reaching out, wanting guidance, respecting the direction. Only they doesn't mean they're going to agree with everything you say. But if they set a platform for you to get some insight and some guidance from you, don't leave them hanging. That happens too much in our village. So here's a platform. These brothers are asking the OGs, asking the elders, what programs or strategies from our past to gain liberation have worked? And if a whole program hasn't worked, what elements of those programs? What are the principles that we need to be at least replicating or considering today? And also, what organizations that were created back in the day, quote unquote, are still operational today that young people need to be connecting to? It's a very valid question. So instead of critiquing and talking about what our young people are not doing, weigh in and answer the question. That's coming up after our first commercial break in this 1 o'clock hour. 2 o'clock hour, no more 0%. Mom Miguel and Baba Horace will be joining us, and they'll be talking about happenings in and around the world of public education right here in the city of Philadelphia. And then in the 2 o'clock hour, we'll be joined by my good brother Malik Yakini, second Friday of the month, Black Food, Justice, and Security. I'm going to check in with him regarding the question I left him with the last time he was here, which was musings on the idea of internal domestic colonialism and the caste system that Isabel Wilkerson outlines in her book, Caste. And what are the implications for today, given that we don't talk much about that paradigm and that framework when we're considering our moves and our push towards racial justice? And then also as part of our conversation, we'll be discussing spring planting and beginning gardening this season. What are some considerations we need to be thinking about as spring is upon us, those of us who are in the food justice and food sovereignty and security work? Spring planting and beginning gardening. 3 o'clock hour. Shamare Shule time. Shule is a Kiswahili word meaning school. I'm going to give a shout out to our Queen Mama teachers in the 3 o'clock hour. Highlight, as I told you last week, Mama Barbara Sizemore, ancestor Barbara Sizemore, and Mama Adelaide Sanford, some video vignettes from some of their perspective on education and the duty that we have to provide the proper education to our children. So that's our show for you today. But as always, we begin with our elders' permission to speak. So Reverend Joseph Williams, are you with us?
Yes, sir. I'm proud of you, Brother Samari Marshawn. I have to tell you this story right quick. Only taking me 3 minutes. We used to do records in 3 minutes. I don't know if you ever knew that. That's how long it used to be. But listen, young man, the janitor at a place that we used to rent for church about 10 years ago took a liking to me for some reason. And on his way to pick his son up from school, his son was about 15 or 16, He had a massive heart attack in front of the school and died. Well, at the funeral, the young man sitting on the front row, he was taking it so hard. So I decided, because my son would have been about 40 years old now, I said, at least I can at least call every now and then to see how this young guy is doing since his father died. Make a long story short, after he graduated high school, he went to Morehouse. And I would call him all the time trying to encourage him. And his mother called the other day. He was one of the students that got all his tuition paid for a couple of years back. About it.
Right.
Yeah, right. So I'm saying to say this: if every man in the audience would kind of mentor a young guy, put your arms around him, and this guy made me proud, and I'm so proud of him. His mother called him, said, "Yeah, well, he got a good job right out of Morehouse. Bought him a car apartment. Had a job in Richmond, Virginia. So that's a good story. So that house does something for him."
That's right. I appreciate it, sir. And with our OG Young G segment, that's my attempt to do my role in passing it forward and generalship that many of us are obligated to do in building the village. So I appreciate that story, my brother. And Reverend Joe Williams of Mount Airy United Fellowship Church, he is our resident elder. He gets us started every week on Groundings, Evolutions, and Elevations with Brother Shamari, giving us our elders permission to speak. So our focus today, we're going to honor Black Women's History Month, but we're going to do, as I outlined before. So I just want to run over the outline for today's show, then we're going to hit our commercial break, and when we come back, the voices you will hear will be those of Oba Sankofa and Brother Casil Huggins in what we call the OG-YG Freedom Forum. No, y'all, G ain't for gangster. We don't do that here on Groundings. The G, maybe the G could be for Groundings. I just thought about that. But right now, the G is for Guardians, the old Guardians and the young Guardians. Freedom Forum, their conversation today. They got a question for the OGs. What programs or strategies to gain liberation have worked? Or if the whole program and strategy didn't work, what elements of those programs, what principles from those programs should we be drawing on today in our work towards Black liberation? And also, what organizations have been created that are out there that are still operational and that our young people need to consider partnering with or connecting with or becoming members of? What's out there for them to guide them or connect with? Or do they need to start something on their own? You know, Frantz Fanon says each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Is this up to this generation, because it is so much obscurity, to figure it out on their own? I don't know if it's that simple. I think that there needs to be some linkage, some connection, some partnership, some mutual learning, some reciprocity between our elders and our young people. And that's what we're going to explore in this conversation with OG-YG Freedom Forum. Then at the 2 o'clock hour, no more 0%. And also conversations with my good brother Maliki Keeney out of Detroit, this segment we call Dispatches from Detroit. The focus on food justice and security. And in the 3 o'clock hour, we're going to get down and get our learning on with what I call a Shumare Shule. Shule is a key Swahili term meaning school. And we're going to focus in 3 o'clock hour on the Queen Mama teachers with a particular lens on Mama Barbara Sizemore. She has a very significant influence on the book I wrote with Butch Slaughter called Why Our Children Hate Us. The whole idea of we don't love our children was a refrain that was part of one of the speeches I heard her give, as well as my Baba Del Jones. We don't love our children. We don't love our children. And that refrain, that mantra was really kind of what sparked the writing of Why Our Children Hate Us. And then also share with you a video vignette from Dr. Adelaide Sanford, another Queen Mother educator, and just trying to get us centered, because I have a very fundamental premise right now, my people, and we're going to dive much more deeply into it on Sunday. We are in the midst of a psycho-spiritual war that we're trying to deal with at a physical, material level, and that's not going to work. And that's why our children and our brothers and our sisters and our elders and our young, the misalignment is rampant right now. And we're trying to address something that's psycho-spiritual. And when I say that, I'm not talking about spirits and spookism and hobgoblins and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about something that's really at the core of our consciousness, at the core of our soul, at the core of our heart. And we're not, and the people who are our politicians and our policymakers are not addressing this reality. And they can't. They're not equipped to at the psycho-spiritual level that it needs to be addressed at. You know, we fight not against flesh and blood. Yeah, you fight against flesh and blood and principalities and stuff in high and low places. And so it's total war. We're being warred upon in a very totalitarian way. And we need to have a psycho-spiritual as well as physical material response in order to change the reality that is in front of us. And until we imbibe, imbue, and inject this psycho-spiritual element to the work that we're doing. It's more than just jobs. It's more than just a good education. It's more than just learning your history. We got to become Black, African, and powerful in our psyche, in our spirit, in our soul, and in our hearts, and in our minds again. And until we really address that, we're not addressing anything. Coming up on the commercial break. When we come back, OG, YG Freedom Forum with Oba Sankofa and Kasil Huggins right here on Groundings, Evolutions and Elevations with Brother Shamari. We'll talk with you after these messages.
Hey, WURD family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
Small business owners are navigating an evolving small business landscape brought on by coronavirus. However, their resilience is reflected in Bank of America's 2020 Small Business Owner Report, a nationwide survey on 1,000 small business owners, which found that nearly 1/4 of small business owners took steps in 2020 to retool their offerings and or leverage their resources to support relief efforts in their communities. While many saw an impact in their bottom line last year, small business owners anticipate a strong post-pandemic environment, and 79% believe small businesses will return to be the backbone of the U.S. economy. Inspired by the small business owners facing unprecedented challenges, Bank of America continues their commitment to help small business owners in Philadelphia with the necessary resources to sustain and grow. For more information, visit bankofamerica.com.
Tune in every Saturday at 6 p.m. to Recovery Talk 101 with your host, Rick Ford, talking about addiction, treatment, and recovery, right here on WURD Radio.
It's Women's History Month, and we want to honor Black women authors by helping you level up and read up. Join the Forward movement and get a free copy of a book from one of the most influential Black women today. For a limited time, you can add The Little Book of Big Lies by Tina Lifford, She Came to Slay by Erica Dunbar, Sing Unburied Sing, a novel by Jesmyn Ward, or Acts of Faith by Iyanla Vanzant to your reading collection. Level up and read up. Go to wordradio.com/join now to join or renew your Forward membership and get your free book today.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. For April, WURD Radio is partnering with the Free Library of Philadelphia and showcasing their pick for its annual citywide reading program, One Book, One Philadelphia, entitled The Tradition by Jericho Brown. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, April 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
And welcome back to Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations with Brother Shamari on WURD Radio and wordradio.com. And you heard me. I said when we come back, we'll be joined by my good brother Kasil Huggins and Oba Sankofa for our OGYG Freedom Forum. So good brothers, take it away.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Peace and love. I am Brother Oba Sankofa. As always, the lyrical soldier. We must venerate our ancestors, if I want to say, to my direct ancestors, Charles and Irene Lloyd, and Ruth and Elsie Lee Bird, be with us during this program, and then to my parents, Eda Mawan and Oba. I thank you for putting me in position to generate wealth and income and love and peace and happiness to all my brothers and sisters in this realm that we find ourselves in today. Brother Kasil, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll jump right into the program.
Peace and love, family. Peace and love, family. My name is Kasil Huggins. I would like to thank Brother Shamari for having me in this segment and on this segment today to speak with everyone about what's going on and what's happening.
All right. Thank you, Brother Kasil. I appreciate that. So let me just quickly set this up because we had a brief conversation about this. We've been talking about this for a couple of days this week, and it kind of hit me when we were talking to a couple of OGs, this year. And growing up, one of the things that I saw growing up was that there were so many different institutions and corporations for our white counterparts. I saw that at the ages of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, all the way up to their early teenager years, that they could go to certain jobs that either their uncle was a part of, or their grandparent owned, or even their father or mother owned, and they could get experience working and doing those things, working in different sectors that they could get experience in before they were of age to even go to college and get quote unquote jobs. And I didn't really see that for myself. There were people who maybe had a car wash, you know what I'm saying, or a barber shop, but never anything that I guess you could say would approach the level of internship level to where we could actually say we had this experience of getting a job at a corporate level. And so I want to ask the OGs today, what are, some of the institutions or corporations that you all have built? We're not saying that you haven't built them, but what are some institutions that we can come to gain more information and more knowledge and more schooling to craft those institutions and build upon those institutions for ourselves and for young G's, so that way we don't have to reinvent more institutions for the next generation. We can just say, we are a part of your institution or your corporation or your business, because we don't feel, or we haven't been introduced to them readily. We feel that it's been so much lost through the 60s and 70s and 80s that we hear so many remarkable things happen. And so many things were built and so many movements were started, but we didn't see the fruits of that labor. So that way we could actually continue those legacies that were started. We feel that we are starting our own legacies again, and we would much rather, fall into the fold with what you are doing. But we don't see that happening. And so we just want to once again ask, where are the opportunities and the jobs that you have created for us, and how can we tap into those segments? And that's where we want to start it, and just ask y'all to just please help us out with that.
215-634-8065. Again, the numbers, OGs, if you're out there, or if you're a young G but you know the answer, call up, share the answer. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. And if you can't call up, we got Facebook Live ready for you. Hit us up in the comment section so we can read them into the records. The brothers have made a request. OGs, step up.
So go ahead, Brother Kasil. Definitely provide some more ground for the conversation, and I'll chime in again.
All right. I like to piggyback off of it. And again, thank you for the alley-oop. I want to piggyback off of what you were saying. And like you already laid out, it's, definitely with obviously, job opportunities, because it's a competitive world we in, but also even within just information, even skill sets, and in the same layout as you put in for the jobs to compete against our counterparts and, other, other races or whatever you have. But again, I think it's definitely because it has to be passed down to move forward. It's not just job opportunities. Like I said, I do believe it's definitely skill set, information, it's power with information, so we'll definitely be more of a powerful collective if there's a, know all be all type sense, and as well as this is not us. I would say challenging, but not pointing a finger. Like, you guys got to do it. You guys have to. Again, we have to too, but we have to do it collectively. So it's definitely a pass down type energy. Like you say all the time, relinquish the throne. So that's being passed down to us young G's, because we understand at some point, God willing, we too will be that OG who will be in the present day OG's seat to help, I guess, finance or help prepare or help, move forward the young G's for the younger generation. So I think that's what we mean by, what institutions, what systems was put in place that in these great times, 60s, 70s, and 80s, these great times and movements that these took place, we may not be aware of these things. And that's us asking, what are they for us to tap into, benefit from that, to again, for us to benefit from it, and also to pass that down to the next generation. So,
Ashe. So I would like to start on the economic side, because Shamar always says we are at war, and whether it is psychic warfare, whether it is physical warfare, the economic piece I feel like is the most important, because with that, everything is taken care of. I mean, you can always be spiritual, but if you are very spiritual and you don't have anywhere to live, it's still gonna be tough for you to tap into that spiritual essence that you want. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can be the most spiritual brother, sister, king, or queen that you are, but if you're living under the bridge, I mean, nobody's really going to want to follow your spiritual system. You know what I'm saying? People want to live. So when I look at, what are some economic institutions that some of the OGs have left behind, and I really am trying to, off the top of my head, say, okay, what are those institutions that were put in us or put in front of us as young ones, so we can see, all right, this, elder or this person or even this organization has an economic base, an economic form that if we need some startup funds or some startup money or just need any resources, we can tap into this organization to receive those donations or that as you say, information and knowledge to figure out how we can also just come up with more economic solutions for our people. And off the top of my head, I know that there is a bank in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, that is Black owned. However, coming into more knowledge and information, they have to put their money into a white owned bank once they have their money. So, they get their money from a white corporation as well. So even if it is Black owned, they're just a feeder into a bigger octopus, which is another white owned corporation. So even though that is Black owned, we're more so talking about a corridor, because when you go to Rittenhouse, Rittenhouse has a name. You already know what Rittenhouse is about. They have different institutions. They have different economic institutions as well as learning institutions as well, where you can go and study and get in front of people, in front of gurus, and learn more things and more knowledge. And I know that, of course, there are different institutions that we have in our society, like WURD being one of them, where you can listen in and get information, but it's not like this institution has an opportunity for high schoolers, all across Philadelphia to come and participate in and get internships and have an economic base. So like I said, I'm asking the OGs, what are some of those institutions and corporations that they have available to us, so that way we can tap into those and feed those, rather than using our personal money right now to start those things, or we can just put more of that energy into your fold. And if not, when it comes to passing the throne, then you all as OGs have to let have to come into our fold now and realize that we have the seed money to start these things, and y'all have to pass the throne to us now, because now we are ready to start those things again, and we have the knowledge and the wherewithal and the energy to do it. So y'all have to allow us and be humble enough to fall into our fold and our ranks. And that's where
fall into your clarify what that means. It sounds like a takeover, like we had in a gang war and you came in and you beat us up and now we got to come under your submission. I'm sure that's not what you mean, so please clarify what you're talking about.
So I'm saying just from a real perspective, like for example, I'm just going to be realistic. The Eco Foundation, for example, we have a space at 5411 Market Street. So we know that is a physical place, that is an institution that provides resources for people every single week, every single day. So, for example, we're not saying to OGs, well, you have your thing, we have our thing, let's connect. That's actually what we're saying. But if you don't have an organization or institution that we can't readily see, then please bring your information and your knowledge and your resources to that center.
Okay. All right. I just, the way you made it sound like I would have to bow down and pay you a tribute before I was able to, come your way. So I just wanted you to clarify that, my good brother.
And that's why we need to chime in, so we can have this dialogue, because this is the dialogue that we need to have so that we can clarify and further, illuminate this issue. So that way, when we're actually in the field and doing this work, everybody.
So, brother, answering one of your first questions about something from the past that should be replicated. So I don't get a sense that it's operational now, but good brother Yusef Nuruddin sent a link about an organization called the East in Brooklyn. And if you go to Wikipedia and type in the East, it actually pops up. It says the East was a community education and arts organization in Brooklyn, New York, focused on Black nationalism, which was founded in 1969. So again, I would have never, ever heard of the East before until this question that you all raised. I think it's a very powerful question. There are things out there that our people have done in the past that probably are worth replicating aspects of now. I think that's what you're asking. What are they? Because they're not readily available or visible. So that's where the elders come in as the libraries of the village. They offer this insight. This is the insight you all are asking for. So no elder can't say now, young people don't want to learn nothing. You are asking. It's up to the elders now to weigh in and feed into the request that you're making. And then you're also saying, okay, and also what's out here now? Because it's confusing out here. So clarify what still exists, that instead of us having to start from scratch and make something new, which is going to have to happen anyway. I'm just letting y'all know that there's some stuff, because y'all have a different orientation and it's up to your generation to figure out and speak into the moment that you were born into. But then there should also be other things that exist that are legacies that you all can partner and work with. I think that that's a very clear question for a village of elders. Most of the people who listen to WURD radio fall in the classification that y'all will call elders. And now a request has been made of them. They should weigh into it. 215-634-8065. Again, that's 21, because y'all be the ones talking about these young people don't listen. We did this, and they act like we never did this. Okay, they say, hey, what's out here? Because we don't want to have to run into the wall. If you've already run into the wall, and you can tell us how to go around the wall. 215-634-8065. Again, that's 215-634-8065. Toll free, 866-361-0900. Coming up on a commercial break. When we come back, Brother Oba, Brother Kasil, gonna keep it rolling right here on Grounders with Brother Shamar. Talk to you after these messages.
Philly Peace in Progress nonprofit organization was started to create a positive change and bring awareness to the growing drug and gun violence in Philadelphia. Philly Peace in Progress is looking for volunteers to make a change with organized programs, mentoring, problem solving, conflict resolution, and more. If you are interested, email Nelson at phillypeaceinprogress.com or call 267-529-7255.
Tune in this and every Saturday at 3 p.m. for the Let's Talk Fire Safety Show with host Adam Thiel, Fire Commissioner, discussing fire and life safety. This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD. The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and wordradio.com.
All right. Welcome back. Welcome black, as my brother Kyle the Conductor would say, the CEO of ECO. I do want to, I know I've spoken quite a bit, and I want to give my brother Casil some shine on the mic before I come back on and drop some more gems, because I do have some things written down that I want to get into. But Brother Casil, please go ahead and chime in here and just, briefly talk about why we're really asking this question, because we feel like the OGs sometimes don't really provide that clarity for us when it comes to these institutions. So please provide your thoughts and opinions on that.
Of course. Like Brother Shamari was saying, the legacy that comes with what's already here, and what one part that is missing from that phrase will be there's a network and a resource with that legacy that can still be utilized or even expanded upon in today's society, and whatever it is trying to be built with the OGs, with the young G's, with the OGs' assistance or help. And even like you were saying, if you have an institution and I have an institution, and we can, collaborate on whatever it is we're going to do. But if you don't have an institution, but you have the knowledge, you could definitely come in on, on board on what I have here and still give that same information and even network and or possibly resources to help expand upon or build upon what we're trying to do right now. So I also think that might be a confusion when we ask these questions as if it's a challenge, or if it's we don't trust your word. We take everything you say with face value, but it's also the end around to that as well. You know what I mean? So I do think that does have to be clear in that conversation, and I also think that has to be addressed in the conversation as well, because it's a collective, it's a unit. And like you said, it's a legacy behind it. But with that legacy, there is a network that we aren't aware of that could definitely be a benefit to what's going on as current. Right.
And when you said legacy, it's like, me personally, I'm specifically not from Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. However, I do want to ask, because you are from Philadelphia. So what are, in your opinion, some legacy institutions that are obviously Black or African American that you know of? What are some things that that are still around from when you were young that are still operating and functioning and still pouring into the community now? What are some legacy institutions that the young ones that are listening now, or even the OGs that we're still asking for to chime in on this, can let us know? What are those institutions?
I think that's a wonderful question. And before we jump to those, I want to bring in somebody that is from your neck of the woods. There's a call on the line. His name is Mike from Ohio. So let's see what Mike has to share.
Hey, brother. Peace and blessings.
What's up?
Hey.
A topic that's very dear to my heart. I actually just jumped in a little bit. So let me just say this. I'm 63. And I grew up in Philly 60 years. I just left here about 3 years ago. And, brother, when I guess in the 70s, young brothers, the brothers in the nation, they were kind of mind builders and taught a lot. And then you had sisters like Sister Atiola, who and I'm quite sure some of you folks know her. She's a raw flutist.
Yes, sir.
She was one of the teachers. The brothers from Afghan on 52nd Street.
ACAS.
They were teachers. ACAS.
Yes.
They were teachers.
Sure.
All right. So those were some of the folks that I had the opportunity to kind of build with as a young person.
And they're still around, for the record, to answer Oprah's question.
They're actually still around, right? And so, my point in saying all this, so I want to say this, number one. There are so many young brothers right now who I would say probably starting in the 90s, starting really building some great organizations. And in 2021, they are so determined and they continue to do some great work. I can't be more proud of our young people. I really, really can't. They are doing an excellent, excellent job. In terms of a separation and all that kind of stuff, I don't consider myself an OG. See, I don't even really kind of honor that term unless it's original God. Other than that, I will accept the endearment of old head, but OG, if you want to break down what a gangster is, it's nothing.
But brother, I want to clarify before we go much further on that, and I appreciate your stand, but we already clarified it. When we say G, we're talking gangster, we're talking guardians. And so that's who we are, that's what we walk into. But I appreciate your correction.
Good. So again, I want to make this very, very clear. As far as I'm concerned, and the folks that I continue to build with that are in my generation, we honor the work of our young brothers, and there's a lot of people in my generation that honor the work of all our young people. Y'all kicking the door in, our young women. I can't say enough about them. I think where some of the stigma comes in is that you get folks in my generation who are frustrated and don't remember when they were gangbanging, when they were doing drugs, when they were selling drugs. And they say that those young people don't listen. That's where a lot of that big disconnect comes in.
I thank you for your wisdom and your guidance, man. You definitely dropped some strong points. I want to work in another caller before our segment closes out. But Brother Mike, I appreciate you. Let's go with Jacob Alney.
Hey, peace be unto you, my brother.
Peace.
All of y'all there. I just heard you speak about the, back in the day. I'm an OG, and I was trained here in Philadelphia in the Nation of Islam, right? My ex was William 87X here. And I never forgot that training where we would have to go into the neighborhoods and put our arms around these brothers because we knew we had come out of stuff like that, the gang wars and stuff like that. So we knew what to do to try to help that situation. Shamari, you know that, I don't know if it was National Geographic or one of them, they did a South African survey in South Africa with the elephants. They took all of the OG elephants out of the community, right?
Correct.
And the young ones went wild. If they had Glocks, they would be doing the same thing.
The same thing, sir.
They would be doing the same thing. So Ray Charles can see what we got to do, just like you said, Shamari.
And we can see it too. That's why we can't wait for them to bring us back. We got to go back and do what we're supposed to do, Brother Jacob. And Brother Jacob, I would like to talk to you because one of the questions they asked, I want to know an answer to, and I would love to reach out to whoever's a part of the nation right now. You answered the question, but I think that the nation, and I'm not one who would ascribe to that as a religious tenet, but the structure of the Fruit of Islam and all of that training, I know when I saw that as a young man, that spoke to me. Being that disciplined and that present, whether I was a member of the nation or not, how can we tap into that kind of self-respect and discipline as a norm for bringing our brothers up on code? How do we sit down with maybe Rodney and with brothers like you and figure out how we make that an offering to the village without necessarily having to be something that I have to be a member of the nation? I think the protocol and the code is something that we need to replicate.
But Brother Shamari, that's exactly what we do now. Reverend Waller from Enon Baptist Church, he had a meeting, man. He had a breakfast one time, and I mean, it was everybody in the city from all religion, from the Nation of Islam to Muslims to, I mean, it was just everybody there. And we was concentrating on what can we do to get back. So I think that all we got to do, Shamari, is network everything that we got.
That's why I'm putting it out there, because in the spirit of Malcolm, and I want to claim that in the spirit of Malcolm and all that he did to build that, and the idea that his building of that was like, it's not about you as a religion, it's about us as a black community and black people. Yeah. And I really think we need to go back and look at and resurrect some of those structures. So I thank you for your call, my brother. I want to give it back to the brothers because I know that they had some dialogue. There was a question I don't want you to run from, Casil. Brother Oba asked you, what's out there now in Philly? Now, he been in Philly for a long time, but he did the Philly pass off. I ain't from Philly, so brother, what's out there for you? What you got for him, Casil?
Honestly,
the brother just gave you three in the if you was listening to the conversation they just had, they just gave you three standing institutions right now.
Right, they gave me three. They gave me three standing institutions, but like they both said, they consider themselves OGs or the old heads. That's something that they knew of that I wasn't aware of. It wasn't.
Did you take notes?
Yes, I took notes.
Where's ACAF? Where's ACAF?
ACAF, that's in 52nd Street?
52nd and Locust, so you should be over there learning from those good brothers over there. Where is Atia Ola?
Atia Ola, I didn't write that one down.
Right off of 48th and Spruce, Spirit First Foods. You should be over there learning from the Queen Mother. She's over there. She's still holding it down. If you're talking about entrepreneurship and how to keep a business alive, go talk to her. She's been doing it for a long time. And the brother just said, you want to get on code. There's a manhood. We're going to have to work it out because we got different kind of cultural principles, but the structure, the apparatus around manhood training and self-discipline, Nation of Islam, Fruit of Islam, all of that stuff is right here. What else you got to add to that? Now y'all can't say y'all don't know.
Okay, I mean,
and we got the Eco Foundation, so we put that in the mix. We village building right here.
Right, and we appreciate that. And again, thank you. And we say to the OGs, thank you. That's all we are looking for.
Oh yes. Get the flowers now. Get the flowers now.
No, it ain't about flowers. It's about work.
No, but we appreciate
flowers and work, because I don't know you that well, Casil. What I will say, I'll give my brother Oba some props. I've worked with Oba I hate to say in the streets because that's some gangster stuff. I ain't like, we worked in the community together on some work. And I know that brother's going to reach out based on what was heard today. I know your people, so I know you're going to reach out to Casil because you ain't going to have no choice in the matter. And we're going to work this together, and it's going to happen because there's work out there that's happening and all of this stuff with people who are growing their own food. We just got to figure out how to put it together as a system of village building. Right. Any final thoughts?
And that was the whole goal that I wanted to get to, is that, we want to work with the OGs so that way we can get the knowledge that they gain so that we don't have to jump over the same hoops. That's all we're asking for, is how can y'all help us navigate those shark-infested waters so we can, get safely to the homeland. You know what I'm saying? We want, that's what we want. And so we appreciate all the OGs, the old heads that reached out to us today and let us know and put us on code or put us on game so that we know, some things. And I mean, it's great to see that, and we're going to definitely do our just due to reach out and make sure. I know personally that I would definitely reach out to definitely Antiola, ACAF. I had heard of them, but I never reached out, and I want to also let them know that it's a two-way street, as we always say. They also have to do some of the weed work and recruit. That's something that keeps the vigor in their organizations alive. And so that is, we will reach out, but my charge to them is they also have to reach out to us as well.
Brother Cassell, Brother Over, the shout out. This is the best segment y'all done so far. You getting there. I'm proud of y'all. Congratulations. This is me giving you your flowers now, man, because we got to share these flowers, man. So that's Brother Over saying quote from Brother Cassell Huggins on our segment we call OGYG. You know the G ain't for gangsters, for Guardians, the original Guardians, and the young, yelder, up-and-coming Guardians. But we all here right now, and we ain't got time to wait for nobody to come up or nobody past their prime. We all got stuff to contribute right now if we want Black life, liberation, independence, freedom, and empowerment. Coming up on the commercial break, when we come back, no more 0% with Mama Gail and Baba Horace Cloud. Stay tuned.
Attention WURD audience, do you know that you can get help with your PICO energy bill? PICO is here to help you with financial help through various assistance programs, including the PICO CAP program, which provides a monthly credit for eligible low-income customers based on the customer's total household gross income and energy usage. If you are experiencing financial hardship, you may qualify for the PICO CAP program.
And PICO Cares is the customer assistance and referral evaluation service designed to assist special needs, low-income customers who have a temporary personal or financial hardship that prevents the payment of your PICO energy bill. If you have a special needs child or adult in your care, your household may qualify for the CARES program.
Call 1-800-774-7040 today to see if you qualify due to an existing situation or a change in circumstances within your household. Call 1-800-774-7040 today for more information on the PICO CAP or PICO CARES program. PICO, powering our communities.
This Women's History Month, WURD Radio is proud to celebrate Black women innovators and trailblazers who have helped us all level up.
Trailblazing Black woman Madam C.J. Walker was an African-American entrepreneur, philanthropist, and political and social activist. Madam Walker is best known for the business she founded, Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company. During the height of her career, Walker and her company employed several thousand women as sales agents for its products. In addition to training in sales and grooming, Walker showed other Black women how to budget, build their own businesses, and encouraged them to become financially independent. The company claimed to have trained nearly 20,000 women. Walker began organizing her sales agents into state and local clubs. The result ended up being the Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Culturist Union of America. At the time of her death, Madam C.J. Walker was considered the wealthiest African-American businesswoman and wealthiest self-made Black woman in America.
This Women's History Month vignette was brought to you by Bank of America and New Voices for Reproductive Justice, Women of Color Herstory. WURD recognizes Black women innovators and entrepreneurs who are making history every day. Nominate a Black woman-owned business for our Level Up contest. Go to WURDradio.com for more information. Brought to you by Bank of America, Comcast, Keystone First, PICO, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health.
In celebration of women, Nina Simone.
I'll tell you what freedom is to me. No fear. I mean, really, no fear. If I could have that half of my life, no fear. That's the only way I can describe it.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, Philadelphia. Independent Black media. Groundings with Brother Shamari. Right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
WURD Radio celebrates Women's History Month with the 2021 Level Up Contest. Join us as we embark on a 3-city contest that will highlight Black women-owned businesses who are making a difference in their communities. You can nominate yourself or your favorite Black woman-owned business and enter to win a marketing campaign valued at $5,000. The deadline for submissions is March 15th, so apply right away. Philadelphia finalists will be featured in a special 2-hour live on-air pitch party on March 31st, where the Philadelphia winner will be selected. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Level Up banner for more information, or to nominate yourself or a Black woman-owned business that you love. Welcome back to Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations with Brother Shamari. And now, pleased to welcome Mama Gail and Baba Horace Cloud for our No More 0% segment.
Peace and love, peace and love.
Hey. Hello, family.
Blessings, family.
Okay, we're going to take the ball and run with it. On March 18th, this coming March 18th at 5 p.m., the Board of Education will hold a public hearing devoted to public comment. You can go to the school district website, that's PHILASD.org, and click register to speak. Scroll down, fill out the form to speak, or you can email your written comments. The two questions the board wants feedback on are, the first one, what should the board be aware of? The second one is, what can we be doing to ensure that every student in Philadelphia is given an education that allows them to achieve their dreams? You know, we want to talk about the first question. The first question says, what should the board be aware of? Well, as a community person who attended all these board meetings in person and a few of your Zoom meetings, I think what the board needs to do is, I submitted a report back on July 23rd. I don't know if anybody can see it or read it, but anyway, I submitted a report. And what the report has, it has 215 schools, the information for 215 schools that was taken from the school district's website called the SPR. You know, and what it does is, the board should know when people come and testify in front of them, you know, the person would say, well, I'm from such and such a school, or I represent such and such a school. And what the board should be able to do in a matter of minutes, even while the person is speaking, be able to go through the report that I gave them and pull up the school. So this way they can see the data on the school. And I think that's very important, you know, because here you have a superintendent. At the last two meetings, he blamed the students' attendance and the students' behavior for their lack of achievement. So the board would be able to, at their fingertips, be able to search and research the schools that he's talking about, or the school, and it is the schools that he are talking about. But what the superintendent always leaves out in these reports is the teacher's attendance. And he does talk about the teacher's observations. And in the report that we submitted, you will see the teacher's observations. So when he says that the better schools have distinguished teachers, and the schools that are not performing well, they don't have distinguished teachers, the board can be able to go to this report and actually look under teacher's observations and see exactly what he's talking about. So when he has a school that has 0% in distinguished, the board can say, wow, this school doesn't have any distinguished teachers going on here. So I think this report is very important for the board, because now this meeting that I said is coming up on March the 18th, this is only one of two meetings that the community will be able to register to speak or send in their comments. Now, when you register to speak, you only get 2 minutes. So you must have your best point forward that you want to say, hey, this is what out of everything I say, this is the main point. Just like we say, we like to have a new superintendent. That's the main point. You know, it's no, we can clarify why we need a new superintendent, and that part will be in the written testimony, because here 2 minutes come and go very quickly. So we're going to move on to the second question. Now, the second question says, what can we do? What can we be doing? I guess that's the board, to ensure that every student in Philadelphia is given an education that allows them to achieve their dreams. You know, we have an answer for that. And what's sad is this: we just had a number of shootings and killings.
There it is.
Oh, great. Okay, now I know you can see it real clearly. Thank you. And that's for the board. The board has it. The board has that. That's just to tell the board to go to wherever they store this stuff, even if they take it home, to get it off their shelf so that they can say, okay, this is what he's talking about. But we just had some serious crime over the last couple of days. You know, and the district attorney says student achievement has a direct correlation to crime. Now, let's look at the ages of these victims. You know, they were 15. You know, that means that Dr. Height had them ever since they were in the 2nd grade. So if we look at the question, it says the dreams, how can they achieve their dreams? I can't speak for these people that committed the crimes, but sadly to say, those who have died, their dreams are gone. You know, so moving on to the actual question, what can the district do to achieve the dreams of the children? It's just as simple as this. They need to restructure the district. You know, here we had submitted another report back in November 14th. And inside that report was another report that we presented back in 2013. You know, and here we're going all the way back to 2013 when Dr. Height first came here, when he went to all the different, what they called regions back then, and he got to find out what was actually in every school, because he was closing at least 21 of the schools. So he achieved that goal of actually closing 21 of the schools. But what he did too was he restructured the schools. He took a basic K-6 elementary school and made it a K-8 elementary school. He loaded the high schools with 9th graders that really, they never got acclimated to high school. And then you talk about the middle schools, which are from 6th to 8th grade. Here, they're performing under an F when it comes to student achievement. So, you know, we're going to submit another revised copy of these reports and give it to the board, because we have 3 new boards, to be fair to them. Board members. And back when we submitted the 2013 report, none of the board members were there. So, but the 6 board members that are there now actually have a copy of that report. So, you know, I don't know who does the homework for the Board of Education, but they need to start doing their homework. And when we say we need a new superintendent, and when people say, well, you can't blame him for everything because he doesn't know what's going on, yes, you can. Either you're going to blame him for what he doesn't know, or you're going to blame him for what he knows. The bottom line is this: he's been here for 9 years. You know, 92% of the schools are operating under an F. Every time the superintendent comes on his every other week show, he only highlights the top 3 schools. You know, Central, Masterman, and Engineering and Science. Like, there's no other high schools in the city of Philadelphia. But all the other 47 high schools are operating under an F when it comes to student achievement. So I guess to say to Dr. Height, I guess you really don't have any other successes as only but the 3 high schools that you keep profiling every other week when you get a chance with the students. Now, there was also a comment made where they would say, well, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what his cabinet is doing. But here again, on his every other Saturday shows, he brings on his cabinet members, and they're bragging about how successful they are. So how successful are they? You know, and to add to the question, well, how can he not know what's going on when he brings on these same cabinet leaders to talk about how great they're doing in their schools? And, you know, to add insult to injury, one show they had, and it was followed up by another show, where they want the alumni to donate money. You know, donate money to what or for what? I mean, I understand you can donate some money and a few children will benefit from wherever the money goes. But we're talking $3.2 billion. Isn't that enough? I mean, 1.2 billion goes to the teachers, which is only 8,700 teachers. You know, 8,700 teachers performing at 92% at an F, but yet to still see newspaper articles where they're crying the blues about mouse droppings and mold in a couple of rooms. You know, we're talking over 200 buildings. And what does a bathroom and a closet has to do with you showing up for work in a classroom? You know, I mean, it's sad. I know we have COVID, but this was going on before COVID. You know, and you have a couple of schools which are brand new schools. We're talking $50 to $80 million high schools, which still produce 0% in student achievement. So Thursday, it's a meeting coming up where people that's listening, and you say to people on other shows or ask questions, well, how come they don't have the trades in the schools? I hate to tell you, but they do have trades in the schools. You know, they have everything that you would say the student would need, except, which we advocate for, is driver's ed. You know, here with the last action meeting, you had a few students again that spoke. Guess what school they spoke from? I'll tell you, they spoke from Central High School, and they were advocating for the students to sign up to register to vote. Now, hey, you can sign up to register to vote at any time, but to actually get a driver's license and graduate with a driver's license in one hand and a diploma or a certificate of attendance, because there's two different types of ways of graduating now, and a driver's license, which will at least help you try to enter the job market, because we know today it's either you're going to deliver something to somebody, you know, or you're going to order something. So, you know, that being said, if you got a complaint, here's the time to complain, because here there's no limit on how many people can speak. There's no limit on your written testimony. So either call in, you know, register to call in, or send in your testimony. But what we have to do at these meetings, and for the board, if anybody's listening, you got to put these emotions aside. Everybody's going to be testifying with emotion. But my thing is this: I don't want to hear or see a school board employee with emotions when they're failing our students. It's just as simple as that. You know, I hear your schools you represent, then I look up your schools, and I'm like, well, shoot, you're operating under an F, and then your teacher's attendance is poor. You know, so but yet you want to come to the community and cry about how, well, maybe the bathroom isn't clean, or you got mouse droppings. You know, you will always have your mouse droppings in your classrooms, because at one time you used to have what they call a cafeteria, where that was the only place designated to eat. But somebody came up with the bright idea, well, we need to take breakfast and serve it in every room. So you can imagine every room in the school, a child is eating. So that's the reason why your asthma has went up and everything, because here they took it from where it was supposed to be designed, the school again, where they're supposed to feed the people, and just took it to every room and fed them everywhere. So that's why you have your mouse dropping problems. But that being said, I'm gonna pass it over to Mama Gail, because she's always been talking, and she can elaborate on what she's always been talking about the behavior of these children in the schools.
So, let me say, yesterday, Horace and I went to the river, to sit by the river and just relax. And going to the river, we saw parents, young parents with their children. Some were like 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. They were older children. And they were spending time with them at the river. And we looked at each other because it was so beautiful. And to think the little ones will be coming into the schools, and the ones that are older will be coming back to the schools. And so to think in terms of how precious they are, how special they are, for me, it's important as a mom, as a grandmother, and as a great-grandmother now, to say to everybody listening, find out what's going on in your family, with your family's children. Find out, ask questions, and get involved to some degree with some kind of way get involved, because as they're coming back to school and you hear the concerns of the educators, you need to talk to the children in your family that's back in school. Don't just say, how was your day? Really have a conversation with each one of these children that are in the school. The pre-K, the kindergarten, the first grader, the second grader, have a conversation. What happened today in school? And sit there without any distractions and let them tell you what went on each and every day. Because if you listen, the children will let you know what's going on. They're more aware than many of us adults are. The other thing I want to say is, for those that called last week, I'm still catching up. My number is 267-379-6184. 267-379-6184. We're having people calling who are homeless. We're delivering food to people. Please, family, get in touch with people that you're connected to and see what's happening with them. And get involved around education, because as Horace said, I've been talking about, for years, I've been talking about the fact that there's violence in the schools, have been violence in the schools that has gone unreported or underreported. And so I talked for years about how it can spill in the street if it's not addressed. Here we have children on four-wheel vehicles, three-wheel, on motorcycles, driving down these streets dangerously. Anyone can get hurt. A lot of the behavior started in schools that was allowed to get worse and worse and worse. And that's what we're seeing now. The fighting, the violence, however it is, a lot of it started there. And I need you to understand, however it's coming through to you, that we are all affected by what happens in or out of these schools, around the schools, with the online learning. We're affected by that. If children are not learning and they connect with children that are learning, let me tell you, it will affect your household. So many times people call in and they say, well, my child and my child and my child. But if your child is doing well and the one beside them is not, whether it's online or in person, guess what? Your family can be affected by that. Don't get it twisted. We are connected whether you like it or not. And too many times people think because I'm doing my job, everything's okay. I can be doing my job, but if the person next to me, that child's mother or whomever, can't do their job correctly, your child's affected. Our number again is 267-379-6184. 267-379-6184. We need a change now. And I'm telling you, this is our time. If you know about your life and when you think about the breakthrough, the hardest part comes when it's a breakthrough time. This is our breakthrough. Family, this is our time. Stand up and get involved like you've never gotten involved before on some level. Peace and love. God bless you. We're here. 267-379-6184. Thank you.
Mama Gail, Baba Horace Clouden comes at you every Friday at 2:00 p.m. for the segment we call No More 0%. And we're going to do this until there is no more 0%. Yeah, I remember I was driving down the street. I was minding my own business last year, 2020, doing my Shamari thing. I get a phone call, like, Shamari, I got a book for you. Why don't you come by and get this book? I just want to give you the book. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I took this book, this little purple book right here, and I read these numbers. And then I said, you know what? I got a brain. Let me compare these numbers to what they say the numbers are. So I went to the website where the numbers come from. And I ain't ever said this yet. When you go on the website and you know what you're looking for, the actual website numbers, the story is really worse than you really know. They are literally in front of your faces telling you how bad they are disrespecting our children and our people through the system we call education, public education, that we pay over $3 billion into. If you're okay with that, we're not talking to you. But if you really are a black man or a black woman who is challenged by the fact that our children are systematically, educationally slaughtered through this public education system such that we see the behaviors that we see out on our streets, if you care about that work and you have something to offer to that work, we're talking to you. And one more last time, Mama Gail, how do those people get in touch with you?
267-379-6184. 267-379-6184.
That is Mama Gail and Baba Horace. No more 0%. When we come back from commercial break, we'll be joined by my good brother Malik Yakini, the segment we call Dispatches from Detroit. We're going to focus on some internal domestic colonialism. We're going to talk a little bit of caste, and we're going to talk a lot about spring growing and beginning the food growing agricultural season. Talk to you after these messages.
Hi, it's me, Gia Peppers. Tune in to More Than That with me live this weekend or catch the show wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, I'm talking to curator and author Kimberly Drew, one of the co-founders of Art Noir, Larry Osei-Mensah, and my personal friends and founders of Black Market Vintage, Kiana Stewart and Jana Handy. More Than That is brought to you by P&G. You can learn more about P&G's commitment to acts of good for 2021 at png.com/takeonrace. Lead with love.
We wanted to find relics and objects that were related to our histories, to the things that we were interested in. We wanted to see ourselves both as shopkeepers, like behind the register, but then in the book section, and the record section, and the art, and the clothing. And you really had to labor to find Black vintage and Black antiques. And so at some point, we were like, all right, we need to be the collectors that we need. So let's do it.
It's funny, I was talking to a friend a couple weeks ago, and he asked me when was the first time you saw art. And I told him graffiti. Growing up in the Bronx in the 80s, and as an adult, I realized that I took it for granted that graffiti was everywhere. That was how we expressed ourselves. Breakdancing, DJing, playing Scalesy. And, you know, I used to have my notebook and try to tag. My tags were terrible, but I didn't really grasp that this was me just trying to emote how I felt as a young Black boy in the Bronx.
It's been a real thrill to be able to share this book with the world, especially after the summer of 2020. It felt like there was such a hunger and desire for Black content and Black business and Black stories, and it felt really good as an editor to be able to offer this as a companion to folks like yourself. I think there's so much about this that has just bled into other areas of my life. When I think through the people around me, I literally can bring that into existence, and that can be transformational for someone else.
Hey, WURD family, Reverend Leroy was a boss good recommendation for Clark Roofing. I found them to be a solid business, honest, dependable, fast, and clean workers. Mr. Clark stands by his work. Call him at 215-365-7663.
Call Clark Roofing and ask for second-generation master roofer Calvin Clark. Clark Roofing professionally installs a variety of roofing systems for your home or businesses. Call Clark Roofing at 215-365-7663 or visit their website at clarkroofingpa.com.
We do all we can to ensure our kids are happy, healthy, safe, and strong. Having high-quality, low-cost health insurance helps make that possible. With CHIP, your child can have medical, dental, eye care, and more for free or low cost. Whether you're self-employed, unemployed, or your employee benefits are just too expensive, CHIP is there for you to help your child be strong. CHIP Strong. Apply or renew today at 800-986-KIDS or go to chipcoverspakids.com.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
And welcome back to Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations with Brother Shamari on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com. And now we're going to have our dispatches from Detroit with my good brother Malik Yakini. Greetings, Malik. Let people know who you are. Give them a background check just in case this might be their first time tuning in and connecting with what we talk about and what we do on the dispatches from Detroit.
All right. Well, peace, Brother Shamari. It's always a pleasure to be here. My name is Malik Yakini. I serve as Executive Director of the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. And I'm a long-term activist in Detroit. I'm very, very proud to be from Detroit. And usually I try to highlight that wherever, any space I'm in, because Detroit has this tremendous history of struggle. And, you know, I kind of elevate Detroit over other cities jokingly. But I am very proud of the legacy that Detroit has produced and to be part of that legacy. You know, so I've had tremendous teachers and examples who have come out of Detroit. In fact, in many ways, Detroit shaped modern Black nationalism and the Black liberation movement. Well, at least I'll say it had a significant influence on every organization in the last century that was devoted to Black liberation. And so I'm very happy to be part of that legacy and to be extending and continuing that legacy. And right now I'm doing it primarily within the food space, trying to foster greater self-reliance, greater self-determination in the food sphere for Black people.
All right, so you said a lot there, and I'm going to jump into some of the lot. We're going to talk about internal colonialism. We're going to talk a little bit about caste. We're going to talk a lot about prepping for the food growing season. But before we jump into all of that, I see like all these guitars behind you. Can you talk about what that's about as well a little bit?
Yeah. So I play guitar. I lead a band in Detroit called Molly Wop, MOLLYWOP, with an exclamation mark after it. And we have an album out called Stand Up. It's conscious music, but it's not conscious preachy music. And in fact, sometimes you have to really like listen to it carefully to get the more subtle messages in it. But we're on all the streaming services. We're on YouTube. We have an album out called Stand Up that we encourage people to check out. But, you know, I'm constantly writing music and was constantly performing. You know, COVID has kind of put a damper on that, but hopefully in the coming year, we'll have some opportunities to perform also.
All right, let me just throw some rapid fire questions at you, sir. I know that each question probably deserves its own kind of space and place, but I'm going to do some rapid fire questions in this first segment. I got 3 that's on the top of my brain. And then when we come back from commercial break, I'm going to spend that time talking more focused on, spring planting and food growing. So question number 1, I did a recent post. I'm inspired by your guitars behind. I did a recent post that just admitted that I had to make a confession that one of the things that irritates me the most is when I hear any Black adult with sense say that something is just entertainment. Like, that just bothers me. I just wondered your thoughts about the power and the purpose of entertainment. And I'm concerned that we don't understand it at the level of its power and its purpose, that therefore we can say something that to me is as silly as, oh, that's just entertainment. Your thoughts on that?
Well, music and the arts are very powerful. And one of the reasons they're so powerful is they touch us on a deeper level than just our intellect, you know, and most Western education deals with the intellect side of the brain, you know, and the ancients talked about kind of the 2 hemispheres of the brain, the Kepler concept, you know, one side controls the intuitive thinking, the other side controls kind of the logical functions and all that. So music touches a part of us that's not just the logical, intellectual part. And as we're trying to become more fully human, and trying to manifest the fullness of what it means to be an African human being, we need to be touching all of those parts and not just our intellect. And so if we want to go a little bit deeper, I'm a musician. So we're talking about the arts in general, but I want to talk about music in particular. And our ancestors understood that music is really a divine science. And the reason it's a divine science is because everything in creation is in a state of vibration. And really what separates one, or what creates the illusion of separation of one thing from the next, is its rate of vibration. Similarly to the way water, ice, and steam are all the same thing, it's just the molecules are moving at different rates of speed. And so similarly with music, you know, the thing that distinguishes a G note from an A note is the rate of vibration. And so, so vibration is one of the master sciences. And there's been all kinds of books written about how it can affect our mood, about how it can affect our health. Some of the ancients have written about how certain keys within music correspond to certain parts of our bodies. So it's a, you know, it's a science that marketing people have used. You know, when you go into a grocery store, the music that you hear played is not just random music. Right. It's music that has been selected because they've done studies to determine, well, if we play music at X number of beats per minute, you know, will that motivate people to buy more? Or if we play music in a certain key. So none of this stuff is random. Right. And, you know, the people who are striving to keep us from exercising full sovereignty understand these sciences and use them against us. And, you know, I mean, one of the ways that we see it's been used against us is clearly the direction that most hip hop has been headed in for the last 20 years or so. Now, I mean, there's always been, and there continues to be some conscious hip hop artists, but you know, the industry as a whole kind of was just taken over and redirected from the kind of conscious hip hop we saw in the 90s to the gangster rap and the demeaning of women that we're seeing today. But not only are the lyrics having a negative impact on us, but the beats, the number of beats per minute, and also the tones, the frequency. Now, if we want to get real deep, there's certain vibrations that correspond to certain chakras within our body. And so if you are just dwelling on the bass level, and I love bass, I play bass myself and guitar, but if everything is in the bass realm and the lower realms, then you're just constantly like feeding your lower energy as opposed to, you know, feeding, and I don't want to deny that lower energy, that's part of it, but we don't want to just dwell and be stuck in that. And that's basically what we find happening with much of the popular hip hop music. So it's being used as a tool against us, and we need to figure out how to utilize it as a tool for our total upliftment and liberation.
And with everything you said, then there's a whole other science to the power of the visual and the way that the visual also psychologically impacts a person. And then you also have another science of the word, the oral, you know, that all of these things have a power and a purpose to them. And so it lets me know that when people say anything, and I mean literally anything is just entertainment, they're oblivious to the science. And we're talking millennia of science, not just yesterday's science, like science that has really defined who we are and who humanity is. And it's just really a silly thing for any Black adult who part of the aspect of being warred upon is through entertainment to say that something is just entertainment. Like I said, we could go on forever with that, but I thank you for that.
Yeah, well, so all the things you named are also the visual, color, and the spoken word, all those things are still dealing with vibration.
Exactly.
Even, you know, the difference between, so the human eye, we can see things within a certain spectrum, and the things that are above the spectrum of what our eye can see, we call ultraviolet, and below that spectrum, we call infrared. But the difference between, let's say, red and orange, again, is the difference at which the difference of vibration and how our eyes perceive that vibration. So vibration is really a master science, and it's being used against us. We need to figure out how to use it to fulfill the fullness of our destiny.
I think I'm going to carve out some space, man, maybe on the Zoom something and really do some more, like you said, a master class. I'm not the master of it, but I think I'm going to pull in people because I really think we got to teach how important this is so that then we can understand why we have to protect it. But I'm going to move on to another conversation that I know, again, it deserves its own space. When we checked off last time, we checked off with me saying to you, I wanted your feedback on the idea of internal colonialism, domestic colonialism, and Isabel Wilkerson's conversation around caste, and how the fact that we're not using that to frame our dialogue around racial justice, what are we not considering when we're not considering those frameworks? So I want you to vibe with that question for a while.
Sure. So I first want to say that I've been reading and studying over the last several months the teachings of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, which I know has had a presence in Philadelphia for some time. And in all transparency, I'm not a member of the party. I'm not a follower of the party. I'm a participant in the Black Liberation Movement who's always interested in what are the organizational manifestations that exist to move our work forward. And so I am studying what the African People's Socialist Party believes, and every weekend listening to their online study sessions with the chairman of the party. So I just want to say that much of this framing that I'm about to share comes from my study of the teachings of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. So I don't want to take credit for it. And I also want to say that he certainly is not the first one to frame the situation of Black people in the United States as being a domestic colony. The Black Panther Party did the same, and many other people. So I think what is fundamental that we have to ask ourselves, well, first of all, we have to have a clear analysis. And part of that clear analysis is admitting that the United States of America is what we call a settler colony. that people came from England, Spain, and France, countries in Western Europe, which were really intent on building their power, building their wealth through the extraction of wealth of people throughout the world. And so those people came here to what we now call the Western Hemisphere, which is also a Eurocentric concept, of course, because there's no, if the Earth is a relative sphere, there's no up or down, east, west, left, right, in a sphere floating in space. It's all arbitrary. And so this idea of the Western Hemisphere is, again, part of this effort of defining the whole world in relationship to Europe. So anyway, these folks from England, Spain, France came to what we now call the Western Hemisphere and created colonies on this landmass. In fact, they created colonies both in the Caribbean, North America, South America, and Central America. But in the case of the United States and North America, it was mainly the French and the British, but also the Spanish were involved in that. And they essentially took the land. So they came with this, this kind of sense of empowerment from the Roman Catholic Church, giving countries, through a papal bull, giving countries the authorization to go out and conquer people who were not Christian. And of course, what that essentially meant was conquering Black people and people of color throughout the world. And so these colonists came to what we now call the United States. They settled in the land. And as we know from studying the history, initially there was some degree of cooperation with the indigenous population. Then the true intentions of the Europeans became known, which was expansion, genocide, and the complete takeover of this landmass, which is in fact what has happened. And so the fact that Europeans and their descendants have occupied this landmass for several hundred years does not change the fact that it's still a settler colony. In the same way that Zimbabwe was a settler colony, or or South Africa was a settler colony. Now, within that settler colony, Black people, the vast majority of whom I believe, and we have a lot of debate within our community about this, about indigeneity, but I believe from the best historical evidence that I've seen from our best historians, that the vast majority of people of African descent in the United States are here as a result of the so-called transatlantic slave trade. It is absolutely correct, as Dr. Ivan Van Sertima and others have pointed out, that Africans were here prior to Columbus, but the vast majority of us are here as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. And so after chattel slavery ended in 1865, we essentially became a domestic colony inside of this larger settler colony. And so as Black people began to leave the South, fleeing the violent racist terror that characterized the South toward the end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, we see this huge migration, the Great Migration from the South to places like Philadelphia and Detroit and Cleveland and New York and Gary, Indiana, and places where we had industry that was developing. And so because of segregated housing patterns, Black people were clumped into segregated neighborhoods, which were often very poor because of the fact that class and white supremacy, interact in American society. So we live in these communities where others, just like any other colony, come in and see us as a source of income. They see us as a market to sell often cheap goods to, in order to extract those profits to make their communities richer. That's a classic colony. That's exactly what, for example, when Belgium came into the Congo to extract resources, it's to make Belgium richer and stronger. When French went into what we now call Senegal to extract resources, it's to make France strong. And the same thing happens with the Black communities in the United States. Various ethnic groups, usually or often people of color, in collaboration with white global supremacy, white global capitalism, kind of partner in order to create what I call wealth extraction stations in Black communities. But we also find that we don't even control, as Malcolm X advised us to do, the politics and the politicians within our own community. In Detroit, for example, Detroit is a city that is 80% so-called African-American, and we have a white mayor. And so one might ask, how is that even possible? That's a long story, but this white mayor who was from one of the suburbs had tremendous financial support by suburban interests who are interested in determining what happens in the mostly Black community. So again, we find ourselves in a colonial-like situation where instead of defining from inside of our community what happens and what our destiny will be, others from outside of our community make that definition. And
that sounds like every politician in Philly, and they even Black, but that same dynamic is like if you find who their handlers are.
Yes. So, I mean, what we see around the world is we see neo-colonialism.
Right.
We see people who look like the oppressed who are staffing the structure that keeps the majority oppressed. So that happens throughout the world.
So what I want to do is put a comma right there. Yeah. We're coming up on commercial break. When we come back, I just want you to pick it up because I think you're laying out a very good analytical framework for people to kind of understand how the world that we're in right now is operating and why concepts of internal colonialism, neo-colonialism, and caste are very important if we want to have a clearer analysis of our pursuit towards Black life, liberation, independence, freedom, and empowerment. Talking with my good brother Malik Yakini. Segment we call Dispatches from Detroit. We getting it in, y'all. So if you want to join this conversation or have something to add of value to enhance our analytical framework, because one of the things you have to understand is before you could determine what a solution or a recommendation is, you got to really get the problem right. And so let's get an analytical framework that helps us, whether we're 18 or 80, understand the reality that we're in so that we can understand the work that we have to do. We will talk with you after these messages.
Well, the kids are in bed. Time for a little grown-up quiet time.
What do you mean quiet time? It's your birthday. We're about to party.
Haha, funny. It's gonna have to be a you and me party this year. You know we can't have anybody over.
Well, your mom and dad are coming from Florida. Sis will be here from California. Oh, and a couple of old friends from just about everywhere will be showing up. They should all be here about now.
COVID-19 has changed the way we do things, for now. But social distancing doesn't mean you can't be social. COVID-19 doesn't have to keep us apart. Friends and family are finding new ways to be together, especially with how hard it's hitting the Black community. Vaccines are here, but until enough of us are vaccinated, we still have to be down with slowing the spread. Keep a 6-foot distance, wear a mask, and avoid indoor social gatherings. Learn more about vaccines and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This literacy tip is brought to you by AARP Pennsylvania. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that scammers follow the headlines. And AARP Pennsylvania wants you to watch out for scammers taking advantage of the biggest headline, COVID vaccines. In the early weeks and months, expect limited supply of vaccines to be available only to certain high-risk populations. So, when you see an ad, email, text message, or you pick up a call and the offer is to resolve your vaccine for a fee, know it's a scam. Listen to your healthcare provider and health authorities for guidance and ignore all else. This literacy tip was brought to you by AARP Pennsylvania.
WURD Radio celebrates Women's History Month with the 2021 Level Up Contest. Join us as we embark on a 3-city contest that will highlight Black women-owned businesses who are making a difference in their communities. You can nominate yourself or your favorite Black woman-owned business and enter to win a marketing campaign valued at $5,000. Level Up is a joint production of WURD Radio in Philadelphia, WVON in Chicago, and KJLH in Los Angeles. These 3 Black-owned stations are joining forces to host a historic, interactive, and multimedia contest spotlighting Black women-owned businesses in Philly, Chicago, and Los Angeles. The deadline for submissions is March 15th. Philadelphia finalists will be featured in a special 2-hour live on-air pitch party on March 31st, where the Philadelphia winner will be selected. Go to wordradio.com and click on the Level Up banner for more information or to nominate yourself or a Black woman-owned business you love. The 2021 Level Up contest is sponsored by Comcast, Bank of America, PICO, Keystone First, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health.
Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDRadio.com.
And welcome back to Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations with Brother Shamari on WURD Radio, WURDradio.com. Speaking with my good brother Malik Yakini, giving us a strong analytical overview of the idea, the basic concept of internal domestic colonialism. And we're going to talk a little bit about caste and how these frameworks and perspectives can help us enhance our pursuit towards Black life, liberation, independence, freedom, and empowerment. Brother Malik, back to you.
Yeah, so we're talking about the domestic colony situation. And really, I want to reiterate something you said at the end of the last segment. And I want to reiterate it by quoting my sister, Dara Cooper, who's the executive director of the National Black Food and Justice Alliance. And she says you can't get correct answers unless you ask correct questions. And so kind of paraphrasing the same thing that you said, that we have to have a clear analysis, because many times we find folks that are serious and committed to Black people. They really want to see us get out of this mess, but really haven't done the study to understand, you know, what the process of that is. And not saying I have that process either, frankly, right? Because if any of us had it, we would have been free. But we're crafting it. And part of crafting that process includes continuous study of what's happened in the past and making sure we have a sharp analysis of our situation. So if we accept that we are, in fact, a domestic colony, and that because of that, the economics within our community is controlled and is primarily benefiting others outside of our community, and that the politics to a large extent within our community is controlled by and benefiting others outside of our community. We talked about culture to some extent. Hip hop culture is definitely the dominant culture of youth around the world. And that is also, although we might be the performers, the overall framing of the contemporary music business happens outside of our community, and the vast majority of profits that are generated benefit those outside of it. So we're a domestic colony where others extract the wealth and our intellectual resources for their benefit. Now, if you accept that premise as being true, then the question becomes, well, what direction do we move in for Black freedom? And the traditional kind of civil rights approach to freedom has been essentially what I would term that we're trying to make life more comfortable within the context of our colonial relationship. Right. That within the context of the colonial relationship, we want the colonists to treat us better, to treat us like human beings, to afford us the rights of human beings, which we deserve, not to belittle that at all, because we certainly deserve that and certainly have the right to stand up resolutely for those things. But some of us want something outside of that. And what we want to do is we want to break the colonial relationship. Right. We don't just want to be more comfortable within it. We don't just want a more comfortable life on the plantation. We want to step out of the plantation. We want sovereignty. We want to be in control of our own lives and our own communities and our own national and international destiny. And so framing that is a lot different than just trying to convince the United States to reform so that we're treated better. And so I think Chairman O'Malley's analysis is very helpful and should be studied by all Black leadership.
Let's stay in this space a little longer, because I've had to wrestle with some people on this. And one of the things I say, I think Malcolm X's analogy is helpful, but also can be expanded. And that is the house Negro and the field Negro, but he used a different N-word. And that's two aspects, but it doesn't consider the Negroes who are no longer on the plantation. Like, some of us have run away. So we have a different perspective. We're in a different position. Some of us have run away and then created sovereign maroon communities that we then had to protect. That's not in the house Negro, field Negro paradigm. Some of us ran away, created maroon communities, engaged in revolutions like in Haiti, and overtook the land and became sovereign on that land. Some people returned back to Africa. Like, there are so many myriad conceptions and positions that when you're just thinking about racial justice, you're eliminating all of those from the discourse. So just build on that a little bit, because I think people need to kind of get that. We don't have a binary choice between house Negro and field Negro. There are some other options that are in play.
Yeah, absolutely. Malcolm X said something else, like he said, you can't struggle only within the guidelines of the one you're struggling against has set down for you. And so that's essentially what we do when we frame our movement is only really a civil rights struggle that we're trying to get within the context of the current United States government, which is corrupt. And, you know, like Malcolm said, why would you want to be a flea on a dying dog's back? You know, I mean, yes, it's a very wealthy country, but it's wealthy because of the expropriation of land, the exploitation of labor, and the extraction of resources throughout the world. So why would you want to be part of that morally degenerate way of human beings relating to each other? So we're not just trying to become a more a part of the American society, right? We're trying to break our relationship with colonialism so that Black people can determine our own destiny. And so when you make that as your objective, it opens up various paths forward. One path is immigration, you know, that is moving either to Africa, and a number of people have done that historically, and a number of people are doing it today. Yep. You know, sometimes people say Marcus Garvey's movement, the UNIA, was a Back to Africa movement, which is really a mischaracterization.
Right.
Because what Mr. Garvey was actually trying to do was send forward what he called pioneers, people with skills to go to Africa to help, you know, develop African nations, not so much have a mass migration of millions of Black people from the United States, so that Africa could serve as this power base for Black people throughout the world. So that's one. Immigration would be one of those paths forward. Another path would be the New African Independence Movement, the Republic of New Africa and the New African People's Organization and other affiliate organizations who favor the secession of the land base currently occupied by 5 states in the South. That's another legitimate path forward, whether you agree with it or not. And I'm not even stating what my personal opinion is.
Right.
We have to acknowledge these are legitimate roads forward if our objective is sovereignty. Another possible road forward might be the road that was advanced perhaps by the Black Panther Party. And in all fairness, the ideology of the Black Panther Party evolved over time. So it was not in 1972 exactly what it was in 1966. But I would say that generally the Black Panther Party and many others favor creating a revolution inside the United States, and then in some kind of reconstituted nation that Black people could have a fairer shake. And so, you know, some kind of maybe limited sovereignty or special status in the way that there were 54 national minorities in China, for example, that as a part of the Chinese Revolution that were given this special greater status of autonomy. So that's another possible path forward. But there are many paths besides just let's convince white people in America to treat us like human beings, and that be the direction we put all our energy into.
So we come up on a commercial break. When we come back, I want you to hit a little bit on the idea of caste. I haven't finished the book, but I definitely went out and acquired Isabel Wilkins' treatise on caste, and I'm really pleased that conversation is coming back, because these are elements of analysis that have been left out or neglected in our discourse. And I think that all of this needs to be pieced together and synthesized in a very comprehensive way that gives us a much more robust analytical framework if we're really trying to pursue Black liberation, independence, freedom, empowerment, and to actually achieve it. Sometimes we get fixated on the fight, and sometimes we got to focus on our future and hopefully that our future is a winning one. WURD Radio celebrates Women's History Month with the 2021 Level Up Contest. Join us as we embark on a 3-city contest that will highlight Black women-owned businesses who are making a difference in their communities. You can nominate yourself for your favorite Black women-owned business and enter to win a marketing campaign valued at $5,000. The deadline for submissions is March 15th. Philadelphia finalists will be featured in a special 2-hour live on-air pitch party on March 31st, where the Philadelphia winner will be selected. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Level Up banner for more information or to nominate yourself or a Black women-owned business you love. Coming up on a commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue our discourses and dispatches from Detroit with my good brother Malik Yakini. We will talk with you after these messages.
The COVID-19 crisis has made it difficult for many students to get online. Over the last 10 years, Comcast has been dedicated to advancing digital equity and closing the digital divide. Now, they are working with their network of nonprofit partners and city leaders to create more than 1,000 Wi-Fi connected lift zones in community centers nationwide. Because students and their families need safe spaces to get online and access the resources they need to succeed in a digital world. Learn more at comcast.com/education.
The Black Words Book Club. Word Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. For April, Word Radio is partnering with the Free Library of Philadelphia and showcasing their pick for its annual citywide reading program, One Book, One Philadelphia, entitled The Tradition by Jericho Brown. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, April 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for Word members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Tune in to More Than That with Gia Peppers, live this Sunday, March 14th at 1 p.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is sponsored by P&G, who are committed to 2021 acts of good in 2021. Lead with love.
Tune in this Sunday at 2 p.m. for the Gastrology Conversation Show, providing information and understanding about your colon health with Dr. Stephen Blake.
This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Groundings with Brother Shamari. Right now on Word Radio and wordradio.com.
And welcome back to Groundings, Word Radio, wordradio.com. Taking a little bit of executive privilege. What I'm going to do is to wrap up my good conversation with my good brother, Malika Keeney. We're going to talk a little bit about caste in this segment and some beginning ideas for people who are interested in beginning planting and stuff on their own, some tidbits and thoughts that they need to consider. Then when we come back, I'm going to play a video vignette from my brain just for Barbara Sizemore. In the 320 hour, just a framework honoring our sister, our Queen Mother teachers. And then when we come back, we're going to close out a little bit with another video vignette by Adelaide Sanford, just honoring in Black Women's History Month our Queen Mother teachers who've inspired the work that I do. Hopefully when you hear them, you'll hear how their teachings and their thoughts were reflective in the book I did about 15 years ago with my good brother Butch Slaughter called Why Our Children Hate Us, and how their thoughts are going to be reflected in a piece I'm working on now called For the Love and Life of Black Children. Brother Malik, coming back to you, a little bit of caste and talk a little bit about planting seeds and how we need to get ready for the planting season coming up in spring.
Yeah, so I think in 2020, author Isabel Wilkerson came up with this book, Caste, The Lines That Divide Us. And I find it to be an interesting book. I'm going to say right off the bat that I don't find her caste analysis as compelling as Chairman Omali Yesatella's
right.
Colonialism framework, but I think they're both useful. But what Isabel Wilkerson did, and by the way, she's the author of an earlier book called The Warmth of Other Suns,
right.
which is an excellent book. And anybody, I think, wanting to really understand this migration that I talked about earlier from the South to the North and also to the West. We want to understand how Huey P. Newton's family could end up from Louisiana in Oakland, then you need to read Caste. If you want to understand how my family wound up from Georgia in Detroit, you need to read Caste. Where your family from, Shamar?
Virginia. We're from Virginia Knights.
Okay. And
we're from the central of the slave colony.
that was the main place, right?
Yeah.
So we can trace, and we see in certain communities in Brooklyn, you got a lot of people from South Carolina and what have you. So we can see these routes that people traveled, and she kind of illustrates in that book the reason that migration happened and how that impacted us. So it was very, very important book. But this book now is dealing with this concept of caste, and it's a new way of looking at our situation. And it's not to negate race. I don't think that's her intention at all. And to tell you the truth, I kind of had I was kind of going to it a little defensively myself, you know, after many years of having done ideological battle with people who would suggest that the class contradiction is the primary contradiction, and others who feel the race contradiction is the primary contradiction. So I was kind of ready to do battle. You know, what's she talking about? She trying to minimize, you know. But I don't think she does. I think she puts race within a framework. And what she does is she examines three societies: the United States of America, Nazi Germany, and India. And she looks at these three societies to see what are these characteristics that emerge that help us to understand that the way race plays out in America is really part of a larger caste system. And so she defines in her book 8 what she called pillars of caste. And those pillars are divine will and the laws of nature. So, you know, we heard a lot from white colonists about, you know, God has somehow anointed them to come and civilize, you know, these uncivilized people who don't know about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, or whatever the case may be. And so this idea of divine will is always part of the idea of caste systems. In India, it's the idea that the Brahmins, you know, are divinely ordained to and that I'm trying to forgive me.
Dalits.
The Dalits, thank you. The Dalits are divinely.
Isn't our vice president Brahmin?
I'm not sure what part of the caste.
I remember reading she was a Brahmin. Where'd she go, by the way? Ever since they got elected, I ain't seen her.
She was on TV the other day talking about Women's History Month. She's around.
All right, I'm sorry, I got caught up. Let's get focused.
You're trying to throw some shade, low key. So the second,
we got a habit of claiming people who have claimed that they're not on our side already. So but that's a whole other show. Let's keep it focused.
Okay. The second pillar that Isabel Wilkerson defines of caste is what she calls heritability. In other words, that not only, you know, do white people say, yes, we're special and God created us and ordained us to trample and rule over everybody else, but also whatever the spoils of war are that we acquire, we can pass them down usually to our sons, and they can pass them to their sons. And this status continues to just, go on for generations. Endogamy and control of marriage and mating. So there were, of course, rules in the United States against black people and white people marrying and having children, because that's one of the pillars of caste. Also, you have to kind of maintain this separation and kind of keep everybody in their lane. The fourth pillar would be purity versus pollution, which again is very similar. You know, this idea that somehow people are tainted by coming in contact with people of lower caste. And we saw that certainly, play out in American. So we still see it play out in American society often. And certainly it plays out in India, where often the Dalits walking down the street can't even make eye contact or have to abandon the sidewalk. The kind of things that we heard about happening in the United States in the South prior to the 1960s or so. The fifth pillar being occupational hierarchy, that certain people will get certain jobs. And so although, we have a few black people, and they like to point to these very few black people that have achieved positions within corporations as some evidence of, of inclusion or whatever, the reality is that the vast majority of our people are relegated to certain jobs which are lower paying and higher risk jobs, whereas white people have a greater opportunity to these doors of the jobs that are paying much more and are in leadership positions. The sixth one would be dehumanization and stigma. We see that, of course, all the time with black people. The seventh, which is very important, terror as enforcement. And so, if we put this within the context of the police murders that we're seeing continuing throughout the country, this really is a terror campaign to subdue the domestic colony. And so we didn't even talk about police within the context of the domestic colony, but terror is a necessary element to maintain that colonial relationship. And then the eighth element eighth pillar that she identifies is inherent superiority versus inherent inferiority. That, again, it goes back to this idea that God made somebody better than somebody else.
And I think that if we can piece together how these things function, this idea that, okay, this internal domestic colony exists and it needs to be replicated, but it also needs to be what I call locked in box, like kept in place at the bottom of the social order. And I think she gives us 8 kind of ways, 8 levers that the colonialists used to make that happen, to keep us cast in a particular place. Because we get caught up, like you said, with the exceptions to the rule. So we're, we got a black president, or we got a black, and it's like, okay, those are exceptions, but the idea is to keep us as a collective cast into the bottom rung of this social hierarchy and pyramid. And these are the ways, 8 of probably many more, that are the levers through which they do that. And I think that we just have to become nuanced enough to use these different pieces of the puzzle to create a more comprehensive and robust analytical framework. So I appreciate the conversation and the dialogue and the level of, and I don't want to reduce it to scholarship. I just think it's an analytical rigor that we need to bring to our liberation struggle.
Yes, absolutely.
So on this note, let's shift a little bit and use our remaining time to talk a little bit, not a little bit, but as much as possible about some tidbits you would get to people. We've been talking forever. If you can't feed yourself, you can't free yourself. We're going on several years of a conversation around food sovereignty, food security, food justice. Let's close out in our last little 10, 15 minutes, really focusing in on some things you would say to people to get prepped for the upcoming growing season.
Okay, well, first thing I'll say is that we are part of the environment, and that's part of African culture, to understand that we are one with the elements, the birds, the trees, the grass, the animals, our ancestors. All that forms part of the matrix in which we operate. The European worldview tends to look at things very segmented and not look at them in relationship to each other. And so we not only have to realize that we're part of this matrix of life, but we have to move in tune with it. Just like we move in tune with gravity, right? You wouldn't, you wouldn't build your house at the bottom of a hill where when it rains, all the water comes down. You understand what these laws are and you function in accordance with those. And so we're going into the spring season. In fact, on the 20th of March is what we call the vernal equinox. And if you study the seasons, at least in this hemisphere, you know that we have 4 seasons. The vernal equinox is the day when we leave winter and spring starts. And equinox is a Latin word, as are many words in the English language, because of the influence of Rome and Greece on European societies, and then those European societies conquering and enslaving, colonizing us, and forcing their languages on us. So the word equinox is a Latin word that means equal night. And so the equinox, if you were standing on the equator, no, let me back this up. Yeah, I think if you were standing on the equator, I might have my science a bit wrong, so somebody might call in and challenge me. But I think if you're standing on the equator on the equinox, it would be exactly 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness. And so that's what that is. And so all the ancient holidays really revolved around the understanding of these cycles of the earth and the sun. There's another equinox which occurs, which is called the autumnal equinox, which happens September 21st or so, when summer ends and autumn begins. And then we have 2 days we call solstice, the winter solstice around December 21st or so, and then the summer solstice around June 21st. And so Dr. Barashango from Chicago did an excellent job. If people haven't read his works, African People and European Holidays, they need to read those so they can understand how these ancient holidays function around these cycles of the earth and the sun. And so we're moving into another cycle with spring beginning on the 20th of this month, actually a week from tomorrow. And so we need to move in tune with that. So one of the things I do each year is I do a fast, a juice fast. So for example, yesterday and today, I'm eating only raw foods. Tomorrow I start a juice fast, only drinking raw juice and water for 7 days. And then I'll come out of that and do raw for 1 more day. And so what I'm doing is I'm preparing myself for this new season. I'm cleaning myself out so that I can enter the spring rejuvenated with clear goals and ready and disciplined, because fasting develops our discipline so that we're not ruled by our root chakra from listening to so much bass music.
Bass, how low can you go?
So that's one aspect of it. But the other thing is that now it's time to begin putting seeds in the ground. And so we got a little jump on spring, a little earlier. The weather's warmer than typically, at least in Detroit. It was 70 degrees yesterday. Usually on March the 11th, it's now 70 degrees. So we have a chance to kind of get started earlier. So it's time to start thinking about the garden. So there's different levels of gardening, and I want to talk to the people who are just starting for the very first time, because for those who already have some insight, there's all kind of resources available. But if you're starting for the very first time, if you're thinking about how you can at least provide a small percentage of the food that you consume for you, your family, and those around you, there's various ways to do it. And the first thing is to ask yourself the question, why are you doing it? Because the answer to that question will determine the manner in which you do it. And what I mean by that is this. Are you doing it as a market garden, as a source of income? Are you primarily doing this to make money? Because if you do, then you're going to want to start as early as possible because you're trying to get that early dollar and you want to go as long as possible. If you're not worried about that, then planting really early is not going to be important. Some gardens are not really concerned about the dollars at all. Some the food is incidental and it's really a tool of community building. And so it doesn't become important, how much you sell stuff, but what's important is the relationships that you're building. Some gardens are primarily to provide food to a family. And so you need to know why you're doing it because again, that's going to define how you do it. Then there's a couple of basics that you need to have in mind. One would be, once you've determined why you're doing it, the location. Where are you going to put it? And making sure that that location has at least 6 hours of full sunlight each day, and also making sure that you have easy access to water and from whatever source that might be. Now, the good thing to do is kind of go out and look at the spot at different times of the day because the shadows are cast in different areas at different times of the day. So looking at how trees, garages, houses, and other structures are casting shadows to make sure you're getting 6 hours of full sunlight each day. The other thing is to think about scale. A lot of times, especially people getting into this work for the first time, they say, oh, I'm going to plant, there's 2 vacant lots next to my house. I'm going to plant 2 vacant lots. And then they get into it and realize that, as the African proverb says, fine words do not produce food. That gardening and farming takes actual physical work. And so you have to plant it on a scale that is in alignment with the labor force that you have. So if it's just you, if it's one person, then you need to start small with something that you can manage and do well. If you got 3 people, then you can expand a little bit more. If you got 10 people, then you can have a bigger vision. But the thing is to make sure that you have the capacity to manage it well, because there's nothing worse than having as we're trying to win our people over to this idea of gardening as a way of fostering greater self-determination. There's no greater disservice to that than having a garden which is poorly managed, which is looks terrible, and which maybe is attracting rodents and people see as being an eyesore and a detriment to the community.
Stop talking about me, man. Stop talking about me. No, but I do want to ask you a quick question. If out of your scenarios, someone was growing for family, they decide, I just want to take that. And what would you suggest, maybe the 3, maybe up to 5, most basic, probably most efficient to grow crops, but also the most functional from a dietary nutrition perspective?
So maybe I'll reframe your question just slightly, because I think another factor in that is what is easy to grow. Because one of the things we want with beginning gardeners is to build on their success. Just like we do with children, we give children tasks that they can accomplish, they feel good about it, then we kind of increase the difficulty level. So we want to do the same thing with gardeners and start them off with things that are successful. So I would say the number 1 crop that you almost can never go wrong with, that almost all Black people like, is collard greens. And so I would say that's a great starting point. You do have to be aware of insect management because there's some insects called aphids that love to infest collard greens, but there's plenty of information available and plenty of experts and elders in our community that know about pest management. But collard greens would be one. Another that's very popular in our community and is very easy to grow would be green beans. And there's basically 2 major types of green beans. There's what we call pole beans, which actually send out tendrils and they climb up. And so you have to create a trellis of some sort for those to climb up. And then you have what we call bush beans that might only get to be about 12 inches, 15 inches tall. So you need to decide which one, because one requires trellising, the other doesn't. But green beans are very easy to grow. They're abundant and they're very popular in the Black community. Cucumbers are very easy to grow. Tomatoes are easy to grow. There's some diseases you have to be aware of with tomatoes, but they also are very easy to grow. Kale is very easy to grow, and it's not as clearly as popular yet in the Black community as it is in some other communities, but it's becoming increasingly popular.
It is, yes.
In the Black communities, people realize it's a superfood. So those are some of the easy things that I would recommend that people grow. Carrots are easy. Beets are really easy too. You know, root crops are easy. So picking your crop, and one of the things in deciding what to plant is both the ease of planting, the difficulty of growing the crop. Some things require a bit more expertise. Broccoli, asparagus, they're more temperamental. But also, what do you eat? What makes sense to me is to plant what you actually eat.
Right.
And so that's kind of what determines what goes on.
I've been trying, man, but I cannot swallow beets. I don't know what everybody tells me how good they are for you and everything, and they're beautiful. The color is great, but I can't do it yet, man. I don't know what's up.
So I kind of feel the same way about okra too. So I know I'm supposed to like it. It's African, Black, good for you and all that, but it's fine.
Yeah. So before I let you go, my brother, there's one more thing. There's a science. Can you talk a little bit about? It sounds like as you were talking about all of the considerations that would go into the garden decisions, everything from positioning and sunlight, proportion and scale. Seems like there's some applicability to how you would go about taking care of yourself and your family. It seems like there's some parallel considerations. Can you just talk a little bit about what you could learn about self-care and self-management as you're managing and growing a garden?
There's so much that we learn about ourselves through gardening. There's just so many things. So one of the lessons we learn is patience, right? Because this society, everything is in quick sound bites. Everybody wants things to happen instantly. That ain't how growing food works. It has a life of its own, a time of its own, and you don't dictate that. There's some things you can do, like hoop houses, that can kind of manipulate that to some degree, but for the most part, you have to follow along. So that's a tremendous lesson, this lesson of patience. Another lesson has to do with so plants require different nutrients at different points in their development, just like human beings do. You know, when and not just nutrients in the sense of vitamins and minerals, but kind of the mental things that help us shape our concept of who we are. At 16, you require certain things. At 30, there's other things. And at 65, where I am, there's other things. And so we learn all kind of lessons about that. We could have really a whole, week seminar on just lessons that human beings can learn about human growth and development and gardening. Another lesson.
You got to let me know when you're ready, because I want to set that up, man. It was hard to get you to Philly on a plane, but this Zoom thing, this might be one benefit of Zoom, is that we can kind of make stuff happen a little more efficiently.
I want to lift up, Brother Shamari, that there's a lot of people doing this in Philly also. And so what I always want to do is encourage people to seek out the folks doing it where you are. We're not trying to get folks to come from Philly to Detroit. Do it right where you are. Hook up with my sister Katrina Baxter. Hook up with Sister Ashley Grip and the land-based Johns that she's created. There's other folks doing land-based and Black food work in Philly. Seek them out and connect with them. And the thing is, sometimes we have history with people, we have differences with people, but somehow we need to figure out how to put them differences in perspective.
I agree with you.
For the greater good, how do we come together on this food thing and on this liberation thing?
I agree with that 100%. So before I let you go, my brother, how do people reach out to you? Either way, you talked about Molly Wop earlier. You talked about the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network. So if people want to reach out and keep in touch with you, either at the level of music vibration or at the level of vibrations from community and planting, how do they connect? So
on the music tip, you can go to our website, which is Molly Wop, www.MOLLYWOP Jams, JAMS.com, mollywopjams.com. We also have a Facebook page called Molly Wop. You can check us out, like us on Facebook. You can check us out on IG We're on IG, like and share on IG, and we got a YouTube channel called Mollywop Stand Up, and so you can go in there and get the latest.
Okay.
So we just, in fact, last month released the video that we shot from our concert. So we did a concert that we talked about a couple times on your show, and now we're releasing one song from that concert each month for free public viewing. So last month we released The Call, which you played on your show before. The live version of The Call is on our YouTube channel. I would encourage people to check it out, and I will be releasing another 2 songs, in fact, this month, this weekend. And so I'm not going to say what those are, but people can go to our YouTube channel and check that out. If people want to contact the Detroit Black Community Food Security Network, they can go to our website, which is www.dbcfsn.org. Again, that's www.dbcfsn.org. Peace.
And that's good brother Maliki Kini. He joins us every second Friday of the month right here on Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations with Brother Shamari. Coming up on a commercial break. When we come back, we're here, video clip from Dr. Barbara Sizemore talking about black people just don't get it. We will talk with you after these messages.
Well, the kids are in bed. Time for a little grown-up quiet time.
What do you mean quiet time? It's your birthday. We're about to party.
Haha, funny. It's gonna have to be a you and me party this year. You know we can't have anybody over.
Well, your mom and dad are coming from Florida. Sis will be here from California. Oh, and a couple of old friends from just about everywhere will be showing up. They should all be here about now.
COVID-19 has changed the way we do things, for now. But social distancing doesn't mean you can't be social. COVID-19 doesn't have to keep us apart. Friends and family are finding new ways to be together, especially with how hard it's hitting the black community. Vaccines are here, but until enough of us are vaccinated, we still have to be down with slowing the spread. Keep a 6-foot distance, wear a mask, and avoid indoor social gatherings. Learn more about vaccines and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
WURD recognizes Black women innovators and entrepreneurs who are making history every day. Nominate a Black woman-owned business for our Level Up contest. Go to WURDradio.com for more information. Brought to you by Bank of America, Comcast, Keystone First, PICO, Thomas Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health.
Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
What's happening to our children in public schools. Now, most of the time when I come over here, that's what I talk to you about, because that's really where my life is centered. But it occurred to me that Alton's been in this struggle, and I'm very concerned about how we're progressing in it. So I thought a lot about it, sisters and brothers, and titled what I want to share with you tonight called Black People Still Don't Get It. For some time now, I have been trying to get the idea over that black people must take charge of their lives and those of their children. We can't leave this to other people to do, because they're not going to do it. And we cannot sit around wringing our hands and shaking our heads and talking. It's getting late, brothers and sisters, especially for our children. Now, when it gets to the point that the way we live is destructive and leads to our extermination, then we have to think about what has happened to our culture. And we need to take a long, serious look at our condition now. Amen. Go right there. If culture is the sum total of artifacts which any group accumulates in its struggle for survival and autonomy, then it's dynamic because it's a struggle. It's not static. It doesn't stand still and never change. It changes with the condition, okay? Because as you try to survive and to be self-autonomous and the conditions change that keep you from doing that, you change in order to combat those conditions. Am I making sense to you? Okay. Now, what is survival? I mean, you know, what survival means that the group has to do at least three things. One, the group has to see that each individual member keeps himself or herself in good enough mental, moral, spiritual, and physical health long enough to reproduce that self and then take care of whatever you reproduce. That's the least. If you don't do that, the group dies. It's gone. Okay. So that's what survival means. In order to be self-autonomous, it means that the group has to have within its control the means to assure its survival.
All right.
You can't depend on nobody else to do that.
All right.
That's not going to happen. That's not the way the world works. Now, what are the chief obstacles to survival? Okay? Let's just be real. What are they? One is nature. You got to have within the means of the group some way for the group to survive earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. Right? So nature is one. Other men and women who might want to take your land, water, means of survival. And yourself. You can't become no cotton-picking drug addict, alcoholic, and kill yourself. Right? That's right. Okay. Those are the obstacles. Now, the culture that we pass down from generation to generation is supposed to help the group to survive and to be self-autonomous. The major way that we pass this culture on is through what? Groups. Family, church, school, organizations like this. Those are the means. Okay, now, unfortunately for us, we live in a country where the overriding values of the country are against us. For instance, these overriding values put in the positions of privilege people who are white, people who are male, and people who are wealthy. And these three groups dominate the society. So when we talk about teaching our children instrumental values like equality, liberty, fraternity, etc., we are talking about ordering those values under the institutional values of race, gender, and wealth, so that more white people get equality, liberty, and fraternity than black people, more men get equality, liberty, and fraternity than women, and more wealthy people get equality, liberty, and fraternity than poor people. You get it?
All right.
All right.
All right.
It doesn't do enough then, ladies and gentlemen, for us to teach our children about the instrumental values, you know, if we don't teach them the impact of the institutional values on the distribution of the latter. Otherwise, our kids don't get the full message and don't know how to behave. Now, when I was a young woman looking for a job in 1947, the newspapers would advertise, "No Negroes need apply." All right? Chicago, Illinois, March 28, 1947. Chicago, Illinois. I did not say Mississippi.
All right.
North. I was up north. All right. Right. So, what did that say? That said that on March 28, 1947, when I was looking for my first job, affirmative action was for white people. Now, just because we didn't call it that then, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't mean it wasn't. And now that it's our turn to have affirmative action, it's suddenly no turns. No turns. It's always our turn, right? It's always white people's turn for affirmative action. Nobody else gets a turn. So much for taking turns. But Isn't that what we teach for 2 weeks in kindergarten? Oh, the teacher tells you your child has to learn to take a turn. We teach him take a turn in kindergarten, take a turn in first grade, take a turn in second grade, wait your turn in third grade, don't butt in fourth grade, stay in line in fifth grade. When you get to be an adult, you stand and queue up at the cashier. Take your turn, wait your turn. But don't nobody take no turns in this country. It's always the white man's turn. It's always the rich man's turn. It's always their turn.
All right.
So much for taking turns. In 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, which legalized Jim Crow. And the overt racism that we knew as Jim Crow was forbidden. And most Negroes, now calling themselves black, thought the problem was solved. Black folks just didn't get it. We just didn't get it. We thought that the problem was segregation. But segregation was a symbol of the problem. The problem was this institutional value system of race, gender, and wealth. That's the problem. And ladies and gentlemen, it still is. The United States is not a democracy yet. It's trying to be. Trying to be. And I always tell my students when they say, I'm trying to do it, Miss Sizemore, I say, come here. And I say, I'm trying to hit you. I'm trying to hit you. Right? I'm trying to hit you. And then when I finish, I said, did I hit you? And he said, no. I said, so much for trying. Right? But the United States is a capitalist country. It is that. Now, if it can be a democracy within the parameters prescribed by the capitalist paradigm, it does it. But when it can't, it won't. The basic premise of capitalism is to make a profit by any means necessary. And the unit of measure is the United States dollar. And ladies and gentlemen, it is taboo to teach this to your children. When I say taboo, I mean it's forbidden. For instance, if anybody gets up in front of a class and tries to teach the children about capitalism and how to be a capitalist, they are immediately labeled socialist or communist and run out of the room. Right? It's a taboo. Don't you think that's strange? That in a capitalist country, we cannot teach our children to be capitalists? Oh, think about it. Because you see, in a capitalist country, you are either a capitalist or you are a victim.
All right.
There's no in-betweens.
All right.
There's no in-betweens. You either play the game here or you're a victim of it. Now, you have to make a choice. Of course, you can always leave the country.
All right.
That's another choice. Right? Now, capitalism demands competition, selfishness, and mean-spiritedness. It demands it. But what do they teach your children in school? Be cooperative. Be cooperative. Take your turn. Don't fight. Don't cheat. Now, everybody engaged in capitalism knows that the motto is win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat. And what I'm trying to explain to you, ladies and gentlemen, is the real world that our children live in, not the ideal one that we want them to live in, not this wonderful world that we pray that will come here one day, but the real world that they have to live in. You want to know why they're acting so crazy? You want to know why they're doing the things that they're doing? Because we have not prepared them to live in this real world. We have sent them through 12 years of school teaching them this dumb stuff that doesn't work, and when they go out and try to apply it and get killed for it, we are not there to help them through. ninth grade. We start talking about I can't control him. I can't do nothing with him. Get out of my house if you don't do what I tell you to do. And we abandon them to the mean streets and then cry because they get murdered.
Right.
Capitalism is not compatible with equality. It is not compatible with equity. It is not compatible with Christianity, no matter how hard we try.
Right.
The struggle for survival in the United States is the handling of this never-ending tension between the institutional values of race, gender, and wealth, which give undue and unearned privileges and advantages to some so that others cannot compete on an equal basis for the resources of this country.
All right.
This is the game. This is the game, ladies and gentlemen. As Alton told you, politics is the management of the conflict which occurs when groups war over the resources.
All right.
Resources include money, land, right? So politics is just the passing around of the resources. If you don't have the resources, as Alton told you, you're not in the game. Black people just don't get it.
All right. All right.
We just don't get it.
All right.
Those who are at the bottom form a group which is bound by its cultural artifacts. That's language, religion, tradition, art, music, style, values. And these form a bond of cohesion which, if nourished, does become nationalism.
All right.
But it has to be nourished.
All right.
And it has to be nourished by the group.
All right. Thank you.
How do we do that? Family, church, school, organizations,
All right.
institutions. Okay.
All right. All right.
When it becomes nationalistic, then the group is strong enough to create an economic niche in which the people can slide to make a living.
All right.
But under capitalism, you must be a producer. You cannot continue to be consumers. African Americans spend more money than...
That is Dr. Barbara Sizemore letting us know that black people still don't get it. But guess what, y'all? We better get it, because our children and our people will pay a price if we don't. The blueprint is clear. The work is clear. It's time for us to get clear about the Kazi, the work that we need to put in. WURD Radio celebrates Women's History Month with the 2021 Level Up Contest. Join us as we embark on a 3-city contest that will highlight black women-owned businesses who are making a difference in their community. You can nominate yourself or your favorite black women-owned business and enter to win a marketing campaign valued at $5,000. The deadline for submission is March 15th. Philadelphia finalists will be featured in a special 2-hour live on-air pitch party on March 31st, where the Philadelphia winner will be selected. Go to WURDradio.com and click on the Level Up banner for more information or to nominate yourself or a black women-owned business that you love. That is WURD Radio, and we are leveling up. When we come back, I want to share a few words with you before I sign off, and we're going to sign off with the powerful words of another mama, honoring mamas in the Black Women's History Month. I'm giving a shout out to the master teachers, the master mama teachers who've been influential in the work and the perspective that I take in the work that I do. People like Collier Clark, people like Dr. Barbara Sizemore. Last week I focused on Dr. Marimba Ani. In future segments I'll be focusing on Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, Mama Baina Bello, among many others. But today I'm focusing on the teachers. If you think about Mary McLeod Bethune and Septima Clark, and the many other teachers and Jegna and sisters who are Mwalimu in our village. So today, just spotlighting Barbara Sizemore and Dr. Adelaide Sanford. So we'll hear from her when we come back. Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations with Brother Shamari. We will talk with you after these messages.
Small business owners are navigating an evolving small business landscape brought on by coronavirus. However, their resilience is reflected in Bank of America's 2020 Small Business Owner Report, a nationwide survey on 1,000 small business owners, which found that nearly 1/4 of small business owners took steps in 2020 to retool their offerings and or leverage their resources to support relief efforts in their communities. While many saw an impact in their bottom line last year, small business owners anticipate a strong post-pandemic environment, and 79% believe small businesses will return to be the backbone of the U.S. economy. Inspired by the small business owners facing unprecedented challenges, Bank of America continues their commitment to help small business owners in Philadelphia with the necessary resources to sustain and grow. For more information, visit bankofamerica.com.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet, hold on. Whew, but you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew, taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Philly Peace in Progress nonprofit organization was started to create a positive change and bring awareness to the growing drug and gun violence in Philadelphia. Philly Peace in Progress is looking for volunteers to make a change with organized programs, mentoring, problem solving, conflict resolution, and more. If you are interested, email Nelson at phillypeaceinprogress.com or call 267-529-7255.
Hey there, all you ashy folk. I got the solution for your ashy skin. Nubian K Essentials all natural body lotions at www.nubiankessentials.com. Also found at Hakeem's, 210 South 52nd Street, the Wayne Avenue Health Store, 5007 Wayne Avenue, and Cultural Exchange, 1450 Point Breeze Avenue. Or go to www.nubiankessentials.com and kiss your ashy skin goodbye.
Tune in this Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m. for the Islam Today show, with a perspective on moral guidance and Islamic principles and values.
Groundings with Brother Shamari right now on WURD Radio and WURDradio.com.
And welcome back to the final segment of Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations on WURD Radio. Don't forget to join us on Sunday, 6 o'clock p.m. when we continue our conversation. I call it Sunday School, y'all. We're going to do a lot more with the teachings that we began last week. So tune in on Sunday at 6 o'clock. A couple quick things. Neem oil, N-E-E-M. That was Brother Zen Motley shared that with us as something to use on the crops that you're growing to keep the bugs and other things away. Neem oil, he said, works really well. N-E-E-M. Shout out to Brother Zen for that knowledge. Shout out to Brother Walimo Waset, because I knew as soon as the brother said it that Waset was going to do that thing. He wants everybody to know that Reverend Ishakamusu Barashango is from Philly. He was a Philly legend, y'all, back in the day. So Brother Waset wanted y'all to know, wanted Philly to get his proper credit for Reverend Dr. Ishakamusu Barashango. And if you have time in your schedule, join us this evening, 7 o'clock p.m. at the Philadelphia Community Classroom, 7 o'clock. We're doing a piece as part of our weekly broadcast. The community pays tribute to Cody Anderson. So if you can, join us on Facebook Live at Philadelphia Community Classroom, Philadelphia Community Classroom. Signing out today with some inspiring words from another great mama educator. I think Mama Adelaide Sanford, Dr. Adelaide Sanford is still with us. I think she would be about 95 or so now. I think she's still with us. Dr. Barbara Sizemore is with us in the ancestral spirit. So I want to close out today's episode of the Shamari Show, Groundings, Evolutions, Elevations, with these inspiring words from Dr. Adelaide Sanford. Talk to you on Sunday. Peace.
My beloved ones, my spectacularly intelligent, creative, resourceful, resilient ones. What a joy it is to see you gathered here in this way. When we have brought the genius of our intellectuals to coincide with those who work with the lost, the last, and the lonely. And it is important that as we raise this question, where do we go from here? Let's not go where we have been. Let's not leave divided and confused. Let's understand that those that are in the prisons and those that are trying to pacify their pain with substances that destroy them have not had the benefit of an educational system which gives them the ability to analyze, to think critically, to draw a hypothesis, to see beyond what they see and to hear more than what they hear. So it's possible to be confused, and it's possible to believe that those who would befriend you are your enemies. How often in our past have we had to confront the issue of where do we go from here? Surely, after the great prophets of ancient times built empires and kingdoms and intellectual centers and wrote books and did surgery and had music and had the ability to keep their stories carved into stones of the temples and the tombs. Surely when the colonizer came and befriended them, they must have asked themselves, which way now? Certainly when chattel slavery came into existence that took away our humanity, that took away our sense of who we were, our rituals, our celebrations, our wise sayings, our proverbs, and put us in a situation of destitution, there were those who said which way now and decided that the way now was overboard, was to give up their life and to give up the life of their children. And there are others who wondered which way now, who decided, I'm going to see this through. I'm going to find out what the end will be. And they got into situations where they had to hold their peace, where they had to speak a language they had never been taught, when they were defied by everything that made them a human being. They must have often asked, which way now? And then when freedom came, we were supposed to get 40 acres and the mule, and we didn't get it. But we believed that we would get it, and we must have said, which way now? And then sharecropping came in, and it wasn't possible to make a living. You had to work the land for nothing, disappointment, broken promises. Which way now, they must have asked. But there were those who decided that they were going to go on to the end, and they believed in each other and trusted each other. And in the name of integration, we were taught again to mistrust each other, to believe that we were like crabs in a barrel, that if one got up, we had to pull it down. And it's Asa Hilliard who said, that's not what happened. It wasn't that they were pulling each other down. They said, look, we let one get out by himself, and he became a Clarence Thomas. And so the crabs in the barrel said, we're all going together, or nobody goes. They must have asked themselves, which way now? And then when Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education came along, I was a principal in a school, and the parents believed that the children were going to get equality of educational opportunity. But it was a falsification, another disappointment, another breakdown of hope, another act of defiance, another act of rejection, another act of deliberate falsehood. And we must have asked ourselves, which way now? And then we who walk into the prisons and walk the horrid streets, flowing with the blood of our people, very often by the result of actions of our people, because we have learned to hate each other rather than the real oppressor. And so we turn our hate and wrath and confusion against each other. And we must be asking, which way now? And here we are this evening, when we have a similar situation, I would think, to Harriet Tubman, when she went back and freed the people. And some of them said, look at her sitting over there sleeping. She is an imperfect person. We have chosen to follow her. What does she know? And they said, I'd rather go back to Massa. At least I know what I have to eat. They had decided which way to go, but she pulled out her musket, didn't she? And she said, you're going to live free or die. And that's the question that we are facing today. Which way now, life or death? Which way now, hope or the loss of hope? Which way now to continue our men who no longer can be husbands and fathers in the prison system, developing behaviors and lifestyles and value systems that are destructive to them and our people? We are a global people. For whatever happens in Iraq and Afghanistan, whatever happens in North Korea, whatever happens in any country affects us because it's our sons and daughters who go there to fight out their battles. We are a global people, and we must be concerned about what happens all across this globe. What's happening in Rwanda? Why did we have what went on in Rwanda? Why do we have the atrocities in the Congo? Why do we have all of the people, brilliant people that we have heard here, who have spent their life analyzing? But the children who are in our school system don't know about them. They don't know about that history. The men and women in the prison population don't know about the things that the scholars have helped us to understand. So what is it that we must do now? Where do we go from now? We go from spreading that intellect to those who are lost at last and lonely. It goes to looking at the background of the president-elect. He understood where the strength of the people was. He understood that it was in that local organizing within a community. We have not done that well. Where do we go from here? Let's not go back to where we were, but let's determine that we're going to use what we have. People of African ancestry have always known how to make something out of nothing. We've always known how to take the imperfect and make it perfect. We've always known how to take those cast-off steel drums left on the shores of Trinidad and Tobago after the oppressor used up the oil and left them there abandoned, pollution. And they took it and made an instrument of music. And it sounds like violins and orchestras and trumpets. That which had been discarded, abused, rejected, and abandoned. That's our story. We have been abused, abandoned, rejected. And now we see a gleam of hope, and we're almost afraid of that gleam of hope. We're afraid to be hurt again. We're afraid to be disappointed again. We're afraid to be lied to again. We're afraid to see our oppressors surrounding the person that we would like to lift up. We're afraid because it means we have to say to ourselves, well, maybe I could have done better. Maybe I could have done more. Maybe I could have spoken more clearly. Maybe I could have walked the streets and told the story. Maybe I should have petitioned that the curriculum